Okay.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We should be live with any luck. All right, close Edge. Go away, Edge. Don't need you anymore. Gonna have you up there, you there.
Oh, Slack, why are you so annoying?
Actually, can I minimize Skype? Whilst I can. Brilliant. Okay. Oh, I got to do my voice record as well. Let's test this. Yes, so my internet's working again today, which is fun. Testing 1, 2, 3. Good. I think that's working. Testing 1, 2, 3. Right, I'm ready to go when you are.
Okay, just a sec. Let's see. Do I have the link open? I do see me live. Oh, I see me looking down, which that is a terrible angle for me. Let me knock down the resolution. I'm going to send out the tweet. And I'm retweeting it. And now I'm closing it. And now I'm putting on priority focus mode. Close that. Voice recorder.
God, the Surface Book amazes me every day. At how rubbish it is.
Get a Mac.
Did you serious? I'm honestly considering getting one of those R Mac Minis and just having that as a streaming PC, just for this show.
Honestly, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. Windows Central brought to you by Mac.
Oh, it's what happens. We'll save it for the podcast. Anyways, I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central podcast, episode 208 for December 22nd, 2020. Hey everyone, Dean and Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central podcast where we talk all things Microsoft, Surface, Xbox, PC computing, and occasionally Apple. But this week we got a lot to get through. By the way, I did say episode 208, and technically it should be 208 part 2, because if you listen to last week's episode, you're probably remembering I said 208 then. And that was a mistake. That was 207. But I don't know. You guys figure this out. All I know is this is for a Tuesday. We normally do Friday, but it's right before Christmas and we're wrapping up the year. Ton of stuff to talk about this week. Rumor that Microsoft is going to make its own ARM chips, which is really interesting. TikTok on Surface Duo. Plus, it is now confirmed Duo is going to more countries early next year. Talk a little bit about Microsoft Edge getting some more syncing abilities. The Cyberpunk 2077 controversy, of which there is quite a lot. Really kind of feel bad for that company at this point. We'll go through some PC reviews of things on reviews have just went up. Literally one just went up actually on Windows Central for the Omen desktop, but we'll talk about that and some other devices that I have in the lab, which is just my office here. But some really exciting stuff that's coming out for PC and laptop as we go into 2021. And then that brings us right to what we expect in 2021. We'll do kind of a next year prediction kind of thingy. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday? And you're locked down London.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm doing better today than I was yesterday. For those who may not be aware, we tried to record this yesterday, and it failed spectacularly. My internet died, my laptop wasn't behaving, and yeah, it was just a bad day. I had ordered a new monitor, which came and was defective. It had terrible backlight bleed. My back was hurting. Today, however, things seem to be going all right. My Surface Book is, at 100% CPU, but it does appear to be holding a steady 2.3 gigahertz, which appears to be enough to do this podcast. We'll see if it lasts the entire show. But I'm continue to be displeased with the Surface Book's inability to run Skype and XSplit at the same time. I feel like this should be something this laptop can do, and everyone keeps telling me, no, it's not designed for that. And I'm like, I spent £2,600 on this thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. We did have this conversation yesterday.
Yes, we're doing it again.
Yes, for those who tune in live to our podcast, you got the first 15 minutes of this podcast before Zach's internet went to heck, but it's back, so that's good. But yeah, so getting to the Surface Book 3, we've discussed this in the past where the form factor and design is a limiting factor in the processor they can put in there, which is not, it's basically an Ultrabook processor. It's ramped up a little bit higher. They have a little bit more thermal room, but because Microsoft went with the book's design, they have to put that processor behind the touch display. Literally not a single other PC maker in the world has to contend with those engineering challenges. Like there's a reason why no one else does that. It's just more efficient to put it below the keyboard deck, throw 2 fans in there, and push out the heat that way. And so a lot of people, go like, well, I'll just throw an AMD in there and I'll solve everything. And really wouldn't. You still have the heat problems. It's not like AMD chips necessarily run that much cooler. Yeah, you may get a little extra performance bump, but not to the level that Zach, I think, is really requesting here. I've written an article in the past about how Microsoft should do a Surface Laptop Pro. That's the solution here, because once you get rid of the whole detachable display, well, now you can go back to normal sort of traditional designs, the way God intended them to be, which is that processor below the keyboard and the GPU. If Microsoft were to do that, they could easily throw in a 45-watt chip, something like what the XPS 15 uses, or the ThinkPad X1 Extreme. So these are the beefier chips that will be able to do that, throw in Thunderbolt 4, a real GPU. Well, I don't want to say GPU, real GPU. The Surface Book 3 has a 1660
the GPU is
Ti.
holding up fine. Literally, the CPU is the bottleneck for this task, and it's a shame, really, because the Surface Book 3 is almost capable of doing everything I need it to do. Video editing, obviously writing, that's an easy task. Anything can do that. Browsing the web, email, and this podcast, but except it really struggles to do this podcast. We're still at 100% CPU, but it isn't throttling. I keep running into this issue on the Surface Book 3 where it will randomly throttle to 0.80 gigahertz even when the laptop isn't that warm. I don't know if it's a bug or if it thinks, or if there's a reason behind that, but I can't. The only fix is to restart, which you can't really do once you've started a podcast. So yeah, I am working through these issues. I am considering, and it's unfortunate to say, but I am considering buying one of those new ARM-based Mac Minis just for this show, because I can guarantee you that ARM-based Mac Mini can handle this task no problem.
No, there's definitely, I think, a lot of truth to that. The Mac Mini, actually, out of all the new Apple stuff, is the most interesting because it's actually pretty affordable, and you can use it for these kind of small, specific niche jobs without having to go and convert. I know a lot of people don't have like a disposable $700. I'm not saying it's like super cheap, but I believe it's around $700. But like, compared to making a PC version of that, like with the Intel NUCs, the nukes, you can. We've talked about the Razer Tomahawk, great little system that Zach would actually probably benefit from in terms of switching everything over, because you can throw like RTX graphics cards in that, Core i9, but you're going to drop around $3,000 for all that. So that's a big difference. Now, I would argue that's a more comprehensive solution. Plus, that could actually like do 4K gaming on it and real PC gaming, but he's a Surface kind of guy, and I'm not sure he wants to switch all over to that. So
a few people asking in the chat, what model do I have? I have the 15-inch i7 with the 1660 Ti Max Q and 32 gigs of RAM. So it's more or less top of the line. The only thing that I didn't spec out was the storage, because I don't use much storage anyway. But yeah, that's why I thought this would be fine, and it clearly isn't fine, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm
telling you, it's a processor.
Yeah, no, it is the processor. I'm looking at Task Manager. It's definitely the processor.
And had if they threw an 11th gen, it would help a lot because it's such a
Yeah.
big performance improvement. But we're not. Well, we'll talk about that later for expectations, but we're not expecting a book 4 in
Fortunately
2021.
not. Yeah.
Although, who knows? Maybe they'll just do a processor bump, right? Because there's a big difference, but we'll see. Anyway, let's get to some of the big news this week. So, I think the biggest story that came out Friday night, and I wasn't appreciative of this, was that Microsoft is exploring or in the process of making its own ARM processors. Now, currently, from what we understand from Bloomberg's reporting on this, is that this falls under Azure, which makes sense. You know, a third of Microsoft's revenue is now cloud-based Azure services, and everything is going to the cloud. So making and ARM processors are used in the cloud. Amazon AWS, I believe they made their own processors there too, which are ARM-based. NVIDIA does this kind of stuff. NVIDIA, of course, they're in the process of buying ARM Holdings, the company that actually designs the chips and then licenses out. And NVIDIA is one of their big businesses is servers. That's actually, NVIDIA, if you've been following NVIDIA stock this year, they've been doing very well. It's because they're very diversified. I know we focus a lot here on their gaming GPUs, which is doing very well, but they also do a lot and they also supply car parts for the car computers, but they also do servers. And so this move towards ARM and the server business makes sense, especially for Microsoft, because with the smaller boards that are more efficient, you can basically pack more into a server and server space and use less power. If you think about server farms, the amount of power those things draw is crazy. Imagine that electric bill. Yikes, I get yelled at for turning my Christmas lights on. But like a server is just like insane. So if you can reduce the size of those and power draw, it matters a lot to the company's bottom line.
Yeah.
But what we're hearing, of course, too, is that they may either repurpose or have like redesign these chips also for some of the Surface line, I imagine Pro X, but would also allow them to do other devices. It's an intriguing idea. I don't think it's a radical idea because Microsoft Research has been building out and designing chips for years. They don't always come to markets, but they have these ideas kicking in the background. They're always making patents for things. And we've heard, you've mentioned this yesterday, but I want to talk about it again, how you heard multiple years ago that this was kind of a pipe dream for them.
Yeah, I'd spoken to a couple sources back in 2017, and they'd sort of told me that Microsoft does want to make a Surface PC or Surface PCs with their own ARM chip at some point. But then that was a pipe dream. I don't think there was like an actual goal for that to happen. It was just an idea that they were throwing around internally, as companies do. Companies throw around ideas all the time. But enough time has now passed where those ideas may have formed into an actual product internally through research and development and whatnot. And now they're actually seriously considering putting those chips into a Surface PC if they can find the right product or if they find the need, right? Because I think Panos said a couple months ago now, or a couple weeks ago, that, when they announced that Pluton chip, the security chip thing, they said that, we will make chips if we think it's necessary. If we need to deliver a product where a chip isn't available, we will do that. And right now, we've got Intel, AMD, and Qualcomm. I think they're providing what Microsoft needs to provide. But if we continue to see Intel sort of slip up in the mobile CPU space, and maybe Qualcomm doesn't, continue to innovate fast enough, maybe Microsoft can come out at that point with its own chip and justify it, saying, our partners, we love our partners, but they're really not delivering what we need them to deliver at this moment. And they could do what they did with Surface with processors and deliver a flagship PC processor to tell other processor makers, hey, this is what you should be building, build something like that. So it'll be super interesting to see if they do something like that and whether they make it exclusive to Surface or not. That's the other thing, right? Because Microsoft does have partners and they build Windows and they already sort of angered some of their partners with Surface. Does them entering the chip game anger their partners further? Because now they've got the operating system, the hardware, and the CPU top down. Why would you buy any other device at that point when you can get like all of these first-party experiences and arguably have the best experience, even though, of course, that's not always true, How will partners react to that? Is the question.
Yeah, I mean, happened back in 2012, right, when Microsoft introduced
Yeah.
Surface Pro. A lot of ink, virtual ink, was wasted on talking about how this is going to destroy Microsoft's relationships with its partners. And to be fair, their partners weren't thrilled. A lot of the partners figured they would, get their butts beat at this and would give up soon. We saw a lot of articles, saying that Microsoft should stop doing this. And yet, I think history has spoken that was the best decision under Steve Ballmer, in my opinion, that he made, because it really did start the process by which I would say specifically HP, Lenovo, and Dell started putting out some of the best computers. It took a couple of years.
Yeah.
For me, the crucial point, I keep talking about this, was the HP Spectre, the original one. That was a co-designed with Microsoft device. Because I remember we got that at, I think it was Build. They gave it out to all the attendees. And I was like, what is this? I'm like, this is a good HP laptop. Like, since when? And that's when that process really started. And now you look at what Dell, Lenovo, and HP, and I always mention those three because, one, they own, I believe it's like around 80% of the PC market. And they're really just squashing Asus, MSI, and Acer. Like, I know those companies are doing some really interesting things. They have a role to play. But for some reason, just HP just has like more capital, and they're putting a lot into R&D and really inventing their own laptops. Now, if they could do this for processors, I see it both ways. I think Panos has a tough position because he has to think about that larger ecosystem, which is why he's in charge of Windows 10 now. He's got to work with OEM partners. Everybody's working closely together now. Microsoft works with the OEM partners. Microsoft works with Intel and AMD and Qualcomm. Intel works with HP. Like, it's all, everybody's like, let's team up and just make awesome devices. But I could also see Panos, the Surface stuff has to be the best, right? That's the point of it. I could see him being like, we're going to make our devices and we're going to control the stack, from hardware to software, completely top down as much as we can. And we're going to just release amazing devices. And, I'm sure he wants to do that. The other thing we don't know is the status of this. Right. Some people were led to believe that, like, they had a meeting last week because everybody, watched The Verge's review of the M1 processor, and they're like, we got to make our own. And they're like, get Steve and Bill on this, and Sarah, because we're now a diversified company, to build it. And I don't think that's what happened. I think what Zach was talking about, where this has been talked about for years, and we don't know if its status. It could be like, maybe it's going to be ready in 2022 or 2021, late 2021. Maybe it is 4 or 5 years out. I don't think so. I think this is something that it's further along than what we know.
I also don't think this will happen if Microsoft doesn't have a chip that isn't better than what's already on the market, right? Because that's an important aspect to it as well. Microsoft isn't going to release a chip if it isn't as good as the latest Qualcomm processor, or at the very least can't match the latest Intel or AMD processor, because that's important for Microsoft and its image. But more importantly, why would they release a chip if it can't do what its partners are doing already, right? And especially with it being an ARM chip, is it going to be able to compete with the likes of Intel and AMD? I know Apple's can do that already, but they've been working on chips for a decade now. Microsoft, although they have been working on chips for a while, whether or not the chip that they release in a Surface PC has been worked on for that long is, another story altogether. So we'll have to wait and see. I definitely think this is more of we're making these for servers, and perhaps we can repurpose them if the time comes and if the need is there. I don't think this is a set in stone plan for the Surface line going forward.
Yeah, and it would have to be better and obviously do something different, as you mentioned. And that's kind of the key thing because, obviously I'm a huge fan of Qualcomm and ARM with Windows. I'm a big advocate for it. That said, I understand the realities. I'm not even talking about Apple here. Intel's 11th gen chips, in my opinion, improve so much that it's starting to really take away the value of these ARM processors. And we all notice Qualcomm needs to really kind of come out with something much more, because Intel's 11th gen, between the AI that they're doing, and I know that's kind of a buzzword, but I'm not kidding. Like, some of the stuff that they're doing with these chips, it isn't just raw processing power anymore. The things that they're doing, which we'll talk about with some of the laptop reviews I have coming up, like a time of flight sensor, you're going to start to see a lot more in devices, and I'll explain what that is. But how that interacts with these new Intel processors is really interesting. And so the 11th gen stuff, though, focuses so much on the smaller things that really matter. For instance, when you open that lid, like by the time it's like not even 90 degrees, that display needs to be on, the camera needs to be on for Windows Hello. So that by the time you're actually fully open, the thing's already scanned your face and you're logged in. That has improved a lot over the last couple of years, and a lot of that's because Intel's focusing on it. I would also say the time when a laptop goes into hibernate, it goes into deep sleep, used to take like 20, 30 seconds. You'd open it, you would see like the Dell or HP logo and the spinny thing. And then that now on the latest Razer Book 13, which that review is up on Windows Central now, was 9 seconds. It does it in 9 seconds from hibernate. Like, that is ridiculous. That means you can put that laptop away for 3 days, and when you open that lid, 9 seconds, you'll be back in. These are the small things and of course, battery life. Their new requirements for Evo is for a full HD laptop to have real world usage of 9 hours or more. And we're seeing that. So when you take all that stuff, it's already competing against ARM. So how does Microsoft come in and, leapfrog that, right? Or do something significant to beat that? And then we still have AMD, which we're expecting new AMD laptop processors at CES. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, but not too surprising either.
Yeah.
And I also, I did a whole kind of, sorry, I'm going to do another little spiel here, but I also have this bigger issue with how much localized discrete processing power we need. I do understand, for someone like Zach, for instance, he's doing this podcast, he's always going to need just localized raw power for on-the-fly processing. And that's always going to be a segment of the market. But I'm talking about generalized computing is moving towards the cloud. That's Microsoft's future. I'm not interested if you think it's a good idea, if you think latency is too small or too short. We obviously saw Zach's internet problems. I understand all that. I'm talking for the next decade.
Yes.
Like where computing is going in the next 10 years. Most people are focused on the next 6 months. Microsoft's thinking the next 10 years. And when you get to that, we're already seeing cloud computing get massive with gaming. It's already having a big impact. Like, it doesn't make sense. I think it's going to be really, really weird. Mark my words, bookmark this. I think it'll be really weird in 2030 if we're talking about laptops with a solid, discrete GPU and a really, what will be an 18-core processor. I don't think we're going to be doing that. I think we're going to be offsetting stuff to the cloud. And the reason is something we don't talk enough about on this podcast, which is quantum computing. Quantum computing is going to completely change how servers and all that stuff works in the back end. Like, that's going to be, because you're not going to have a quantum computer at home. Not for a long time. I don't think probably ever. But that's going to be run by Microsoft. Like, that's going to be so much, tapping into so much raw power that no amount of Apple silicon is ever going to match on a discrete localized level in your little laptop. And so, like, why would you, combined with 5G, and maybe at that point, of course, 6G, like, why would you continue to build for that computing style? It just limits so much. We see it in all our devices. They get warm. You have to make a huge battery for it to power that processor. Like, there's so many constraints that go in there. But if you can really reduce that to just a localized basic chip that just handles all this stuff, it completely changes the game. So I do wonder if we're having an arms race for basically not a dead end category, but a category that is going to wane in the next decade. And I really do believe that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it really the landscape for the next 10 years really is interesting. Obviously, we know at some point next year, Microsoft will introduce its cloud PC service, which is apps in the cloud. And that really is the beginning of that kind of thing. At first, it will be productivity-based apps and whatnot. But eventually, I think we will see things like, heavyweight AutoCAD, maybe not AutoCAD at first, but things like Premiere Pro or Photoshop, or stuff that requires rendering. If you can offload all of that process to the cloud, then you can have super thin and light laptops like the Surface Pro or the Surface laptop and do actual proper work on them, because you can just offload lots of that to the cloud and you don't have to worry about it, right? And I really do think we're going to see Microsoft and indeed everyone tap into those kind of things in the next decade.
Someone brought up that offline high power computing would still be a thing due to connectivity issues in third world countries, which, by the way, small rant again, they're emerging markets. That's Cold War terminology. We don't call them third world. But what I was going to say was yes and no. There's actually a lot of effort to get internet into emerging markets. Facebook's experimenting with this. Google's experimenting with this. Tesla, or SpaceX, I should say, they're putting thousands of these mini satellites into space. They're using balloons that will high altitude balloons that just basically float above and will then rebeam internet down. So there's actually a big effort. The thing is, everybody's trying to get away from wired internet because it's completely cost inefficient to do that. So everybody's trying to do this wireless system. So I would say there's actually a big push for that in emerging markets. But while localized processing and powerful systems may be preferred, they're also, prohibitively expensive. Like, if you're talking getting like an NVIDIA GPU and like a Core i9, a Core i7, a 45 watt, or an AMD and 64 gigs of RAM, that's an expensive system. And it's always going to be an expensive system when you're talking about that thing. But if I can go, here's just a single light ARM processor and some memory for you and a little bit of storage, and now you can connect up to the internet, that cost of that device is going to be like at least a quarter of what you paid for. And that's almost more important in emerging markets than saying, go buy that $3,000 laptop because you're an emerging market. So I think there's, again, going to be a lot of innovation in that space. And I actually think some of that would trickle back up to, more mainstream markets.
We're not saying that cloud computing will replace everything. There will always be need for localized workstation horsepower and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's like, not everybody needs that. Like, I would love to be able to do this podcast using cloud services because I can do this once a week. I don't really need the localized power for that. This is the only heavyweight task apparently that I do in the week. But we're not there yet, of course, and hopefully we will be one day. Hopefully within the next 10 years, we start to see these sort of services and workflows come online. Because I'm really interested to see what kind of new, because it will also enable new device form factors. Because then processors can become smaller and thinner, but also they don't have to be as powerful because we're not doing as heavy application tasks on them anymore, right? So we can end up with devices that are like paper thin, and that'd be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, then the biggest issue is powering the display.
Yeah.
And so, whenever you see in the future, like Westworld, and they have the trifold thing, like, they're not like, you can't have that device with like an NVIDIA RTX graphics card.
Yeah.
Like this model doesn't make sense anymore, right? And I know it's hard to think about the idea that there's just going to be like 5G wireless internet that's going to be super high speed everywhere, but that is the ideal, and it makes way more sense. People are talking about, even in the US, the poor internet, which is true. Like, we went through an expansion period where everybody was like, let's lay down fiber optic. And then everybody like basically ran out of money. They're like, this is too expensive. The United States is too massive to completely lay down wire. And so going wireless is one reason why Verizon is attempting to push millimeter wave as a home solution for high-speed internet. Still got a long way to go there, but that is their plan. They're like, because they're not doing Fios anymore. I mean, they are as a business, but they stopped laying down fiber optic. And they're seeing the idea of going 5G wireless as the real solution to bringing high-speed internet to people's homes. We'll see, but it's an interesting story. So that's the bigger picture for Microsoft and its potential ARM processors. Anywho, let's go on to Surface Duo. Zach, you initially reported a rumor. Well, it wasn't a rumor, it was through your sources that they were going to expand markets for Duo in 2021. And then Microsoft came out with an end of the year Surface Duo kind of wrap up thing. And they confirmed where is it going to and what does this tell us about Surface Duo in terms of sales?
Yeah, so the article was very positive. They're like, we've had a great few months of the Duo in the US, and we will be launching it in more markets in 2021. They announced, I think, 4 new markets: Canada, the UK, France, and Germany. Was it 4 or 5?
That was 4.
4, yep. Yes. So those are the only 4 markets. Like I said before, it's a handful of markets, not many markets at all. But it's good to see that they are rolling it out in more areas anyway, because I think that means it's done well enough in the US for them to build a few more and release them elsewhere. And I do think they will have to build a few more because the US model of the Surface Duo doesn't have any markings on the back, and in EU markets you have to have markings on the device that say, it's certified for the EU market and whatnot. And the Duo doesn't have that in the US. I'm going to be interested to see if they repackage some of the existing stock or if they actually build brand new ones. We'll be able to tell based on the model numbers on the boxes when they ship. Either way, yes, it's rolling out to more markets. They didn't say when, but I am hearing that'll be sometime in February. And they also didn't mention any pricing. I've not heard anything on pricing. I wouldn't. The Duo's basically been on sale for a while now, right? In the US, I think you can still get it for $1,100 or $1,200 from the Microsoft Store. I don't know if those sales will continue after the holidays. I assume they might, and if they do, I assume we'll see that reflected when they launch in February in other markets as well. I would be surprised if it launches at full price as it did in the US, in the UK. Because you've got to remember, this is the Surface Duo, which is launching with a Snapdragon 855, 6 gigs of RAM, and a single measly camera in 2021 at this point. It was already outdated at the end of 2020. And now we're going to be launching it in 2021, and people are going, Microsoft wants people to buy it, and charging £1,400 or €1,400 for that is, I think at this point, asking for a bit too much, because I think most people thought back in September that was asking for too much. If that's the case, then it's definitely asking for too much in February. But yes, the Duo is launching in more markets, and interestingly, they also announced that TikTok now supports Surface Duo, which is fun. And by supports, I mean it now supports the spanning capability. If you've not tried it, on the right screen is the TikTok video feed, and on the left screen is like some search UI with trends and whatnot. You can click into things and find videos. Kind of cool. A lot of people said on Twitter, wouldn't it make more sense if the video was on the left and the comments were on the right? And I kind of agree with that, but that's besides the point. At least TikTok did something, unlike most other developers in the world.
Yeah, they should have. I understand both approaches.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of browse and search for stuff on the left side while viewing on the right, which I find a little bit more natural. That said, the audio speakers on the left side, it doesn't really matter too much, but you kind of want the speaker and the video aligned, Yeah. But I do agree that there should be like a mode for the way. So I've started using TikTok, and I love it. By the way,
it's great.
I can
see why it's popular.
Yeah, I really hate people who are just like, it's so stupid. It's a waste of time. It's just like, I feel like every piece of the internet started off that way, whether it's Twitter, it's Instagram. Oh, you're just going to post food photos. And then like Facebook was like, find your old school friends and just like brag about what you're doing, right? And now it's just like we can't get people to quit Facebook fast enough. That said, like with TikTok, it's so cool because I'm blown away by the creativity, especially of young people. Although, some older people in there are doing some great stuff too. But it's a creative medium. And listen, life isn't complicated. Let me narrow it down to you. I'm going to write the book of Dan someday. There's 2 things when people go, what's the meaning of life? 1, if you want, make babies. Literally, it's the biological drive. The only thing biology, Mother Nature cares about is you passing on your genes. That's it. That's technically the meaning of life. If you want to make it all spiritual, knock yourself out. But this is why when people have kids, they change and they're just like, oh, I'm all about my child. You think that's like you made that decision? No, your brain kicked in and was like, yeah, I have to now take care of this thing because that's biology. That's the meaning of life. If you want to go to a more esoteric level about being human, it's about creation and creativity. It's the only thing people want. It's why a lot of people hate their jobs, by the way, because you're at a job where you're not able to create an input. So you're just a kind of a cog in the wheel and you don't feel very satisfied, which is why maybe you come home and you do gaming or you try to find a hobby to distract yourself. Zach, and I think I'm speaking for Zach here, and myself have jobs where we literally get up and create every day, even though it's sometimes writing a review or an article. Um, and it's work, right? I mean, it is work. I don't love writing, actually. I actually hate writing, but it's a creative process. And so whenever you give people a new tool to create, people love that stuff because that's expressing themselves is what humans want to do. And I see that so much on TikTok. I've never laughed as hard as some of the videos I've seen on there. And their algorithm is really what makes it too. The idea that as soon as you start liking stuff, it finds similar things based on that. And it's very good at doing that. So this gets back to the whole thing with the dual screen. My point is when you use TikTok, I find you stick to your feed basically, which is just one video and you swipe up for the next one. You just keep doing that like a slot machine. So it would make more sense to have that on the left side and then on the right side, the comments, as people pointed out, because quite frankly, the comments sometimes are better than the video. Like people's comments, it's kind of like when I go on AV Club, like, and people comment about TV shows or movies. There's just the people there are just so much more witty and smart than myself that I get so much entertainment value and a lot of good points that people make. So maybe they'll do that. We can say, at least with TikTok, probably the reason it's not because Surface Duo is super popular. It's probably because at some point when Microsoft almost bought TikTok, they're like, hey, can we help you with the app? We have this thing. And they probably made a deal there, which is cool. So I'm happy for it, and I like TikTok. I think it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. You know what isn't so good though? The lack of a December update for Surface Duo, which is a real shame because I had heard originally early in December that there was one in the works and that it would be late because there was a blocking bug that they were still trying to fix and they hadn't fixed it in time for the certification process for the first week of December launch, which is kind of what they try to aim for every month. So I heard it was going to launch on December 17th, and then December 17th came and went, and it didn't show up. And then I was told that they had actually decided to just postpone the release and in fact, cancel the December release and just go straight to the January one because it's the holidays. People aren't really looking for an update anyway. It's going to be more bug fixes. There's no new features on the horizon for these sort of patches at the moment. So yeah, they just decided to just punt it to January. And to be fair, I kind of don't blame them. I wasn't, holding out for this December update. I think the November update's fine. Although it's not great that Microsoft didn't communicate this themselves. They did commit to monthly updates, and after 3 months they've already fallen. So I would have at least appreciated a tweet from the Microsoft account or something saying, "Hey, Surface Duo users," but alas, they didn't do that. We did have to reach out to PR, and they did sort of confirm that there won't be an update this month, but updates will resume in the new year. So yeah, that's a shame. But like I said, we weren't expecting any new features in the December update, just more fixes. And while fixes are welcome on the Duo, I do think the Duo is in a good place right now in the November update. I don't run into too many issues these days. It's definitely not as bad as it was at launch. They've done a good job through the OS updates so far, and indeed app updates. I think updates to the Microsoft launchers in particular have really, made this thing a bit more stable. So that's really good. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Dan, but I think you can agree that it's fine that there's no update this month, as long as they don't do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a really laid-back, chill person. I've explained this before. I don't have the emotional energy to get mad at a lack of an update on my phone this month. Congratulations if in life you can expend the energy to not only get mad about this, but then write about how mad you are about this. I simply don't have that energy. I'm also more forgiving because December, we're sandwiched by, we call it the holiday season for a reason in the United States. We're sandwiched by Thanksgiving and then Christmas, and in between that, COVID. So there's people start dropping off. You see a lot of people on Twitter and Microsoft, they're like, I'm off now through 2021. Like some people are taking vacations. So they're on a skeleton crew. We don't know that bug got squashed. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they did, but they're not like, some of you don't want to push out a patch and then go, all right, we're done.
And it doesn't, and it's broken,
lock the door and you're gone for 2 weeks, right? Because if anything goes wrong, like that's not a fun Christmas, right? For anybody. So I can understand this. I do agree it would have been nice to have it out there. That said, it's not like my Galaxy Note 20 Ultra has a December patch, right? So I'm not expecting that, who knows when. Apple's the only one that, can keep pushing out updates for what it is, but they have such a much easier system than everybody else. So whatever, but at least, we'll see with January. We're hoping for some fixes, maybe a couple new features. Still need some new stuff for launcher. You're not going to be very excited the day we can do something like change our icons.
That would be nice. I do hear they are working on that, but I don't know what the ETA
you would hope
is.
So.
Yeah, well, because the launcher supports it. If you use launcher on a phone that isn't the Duo, it can do it. So they have literally just disabled it for the launcher specifically. I think that they do that because didn't they say to us that they wanted the experience to be consistent and streamlined at first, and over time they would reintroduce these more refined features and controls and whatnot. So I think we will see this sort of stuff return. I don't think we'll see everything return. I don't think we'll see the gestures return in their complex customizability as they are on other Android phones, because on Duo, swiping up is a vital gesture on its own, and because I think on Android you can customize which icons you can swipe on and stuff, but you need to be able to swipe up anywhere on the home screen to get access to the app launcher, or the all apps list, whatever it's called. So I think maybe we won't see the gestures, but I think we will see edit icons and stuff and icon packs, because icon packs are fun. That's what this what Android's all about, personalizing your device. And so far the launcher can't do that, and it's kind of lame.
They keep introducing a bug in the Microsoft launcher beta that drives me nuts, because I use search all the time, which is why I have so many Bing points. But so when you do a search with the bar, it starts giving you basically hits on Bing, like recommendations, like, this is what you mean. And you can then hit that and boom, it opens up Edge and you're off. But if you type something that doesn't pop up immediately on Bing, you can still hit the search button, and then it just goes and does a direct search for whatever you literally just typed into Bing, and off you go. For some reason, they have this bug where when I type in the complex thing I'm looking for, it doesn't populate, and I hit search, nothing happens.
Oh.
And so it's been doing that for about 2-3 weeks, and then they fixed it this week. Nice. I was like, oh, finally. And then it came back. I'm like, why? What's going on?
Tell you what, so how do you get access to the search bar? Do you do the swipe down, or do you have the widget on the homepage?
Yeah, I have the widget on the homepage.
Replace that widget with the Edge search bar. I actually think that the Edge search bar is much better than the built-in one. It's much. I don't know why. It just feels nicer to use, and I bet it's fixed with that.
Yeah, I think there's like 3 search bars. There's Launcher, Edge, and then Bing.
Yeah.
The Bing app has
there are 3 of the Duo, but the Edge one I think is the best because it has like a drop-down menu and stuff. It's really nice.
I shall give that a go. There we go. Tips with Zach Bowden. All right, so let's move on to some other topics of Surface. And people, we didn't mention, of course, Surface Duo 2. Yeah, we're still, we're talking about this for thinking ahead for 2021. But this makes this, the release of Duo in more countries a little bit weird. Like, it's kind of hard to recommend unless you have a lot of money, because it's like we don't know 100%, but you hear that the goal is to try to get out Duo 2 by end of 2021, correct?
The other thing I heard alongside that, though, is that, again, it will only be for US markets, and the Duo 2 will launch
so then it goes
a few months later. Right. So, but Microsoft isn't afraid of launching a successor to a product sooner than other companies. They did it with the Surface Pro and the Surface Pro 2. I think there was only 9 months between those. They did it with the Microsoft Band in the UK. I think the Band came out in the springtime, and then the Band 2 came out in the fall for markets that aren't in the US. So, Microsoft has done this before, so it wouldn't be surprising to see them do it again. But yeah, it is a shame. Like, if you are somebody who lays down $1,400 or pounds or whatever on a Duo in February and then in September, the Duo 2, it's way better. It's like, oh, wow, thanks.
Of
But
course, as you pointed out, you probably wouldn't have access to it
right,
until
right.
a year later. So, maybe. But that is our, initial recommendation if you're thinking about buying this in Europe. If you have extra money and you think you can flip it, or you're just like, you don't kind of care and you want the experience. And listen, Zach and I'm still using the Duo as my main device. I absolutely love it. I was in the doctor's office the other day, just sitting there browsing the news. Like, it is just so such a fun device.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that said, we've mentioned this numerous times. Everybody who brings up the criticisms of Duo, it's valid, of course. But the original Duo, what was a Dramina, it wasn't designed to be a phone, an Android phone.
Right. Especially
we have to keep that in mind. It was meant to be a Windows 10 PC, basically, that went in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to come out in 2018. That was the plan. The hardware we have in front of us is that. They just at the last minute said, because the 10X thing fell through, or the whatever called Cloud OS or Core OS. And then they threw Android on there, and you're like, okay, it's a phone now too. And it's like, so when you're like, there's no NFC, how do you release a phone with no NFC? Because it wasn't a phone. And same with the camera. If this was a pocketable surface, you wouldn't really care about the camera. But because now it's a phone, it's got to have a good camera. So going into that, now we're going to Duo 2. They know it's a phone.
Mm-hmm.
They can tweak and build the hardware around more phone-ish things that people kind of want, including what we presume will be NFC, a better camera. Perhaps that rear camera will come back that we saw from the prototypes. Maybe wireless charging, they can jam it in there. And definitely the latest or very more modern processor, probably 5G as well, right? So this is going to be the device that they're now the one that you wanted. And that's important when we talk about Duo and why people don't like it, because those are fair criticisms. But when you understand that they want to just get this out so they can just get their feet running, because they knew they had to get something out there sooner than later. Start small, build yourself up big, and go from there. So I think Duo 2 will be sort of like, yes, finally, that's what we wanted kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I am looking forward to it. A Duo 2 is definitely in the works. It's definitely on the way. We are kind of expecting it at the end of next year. But obviously with the pandemic and the economy and the uncertainty in the world right now, that can obviously be pushed back if necessary. So nothing's guaranteed, unfortunately. But I do think we will definitely see a Duo 2 eventually, because they've invested a lot in the software side. They have a lot of plans for the software for Android 11, Android 12, just Android as a whole on this device. They brought in that mobile team, which was like an external team that was working on the Android stuff. Those people are now in-house. If they weren't serious, they wouldn't have done that. They would have kept them external, but they brought them in. They're now full-time Microsoft employees working full-time on Duo features and experiences and Duo 2 stuff for codename Zeta, as we understand it. So yeah, it will definitely show up at some point, and it will be a much better device, is what I'm hearing.
And you heard that they're working on Zeta in the summer of 2020.
So I'd heard that the development of the Duo 2 had began before the Duo 1 was even announced as starting to ship. So it was sometime in the summer of 2020, a bit before then, I think, as well. It was a codename Zeta. I was sitting on that codename for a while, and Walking Cat leaked it. God damn it.
Yeah, and it's important for context, because, again, we're not saying it's like, here it is, like almost January 2021, they're going to start to build the phone now. Because it does take, as soon as a new phone comes out, like that, the next version of the phone has already been in development. Because I believe it's at least 9 months. You need at least 9 months to build a next gen product, and that's for an experienced
you need to lock in the designs and what the components like 6 to 9 months before it ships. So you will definitely be R&Ding and designing and thinking and blueprinting the next version in the middle of the version before its development cycle, because you have to, right? Because I think how it works is, as an engineer, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but if I was an engineer and I was working on these hardware products, I'd be looking at the product, trying to build it, trying to fit things in, and going, right, we can't do that now, but if we work this out and do this thing, we can probably do that in version 2, right? Let's put that to the side. And then that's how a version 2 comes to life. It's when it's things that you want in version 1 that don't necessarily fit or can't be done because the technology isn't there yet, then they come back to it at a later date and, put it together as a new product for version 2. I assume that's kind of how it works. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. But Duo 2 definitely in the works.
So that's good to know. So plan for next year. Very exciting. Let's talk quickly about Microsoft Edge, my favorite web browser. Edge has been getting all sorts of cool new stuff. I did tweet out this week, and we now have an article up on Windows Central. I believe it's in Edge Dev. Should be also in Edge Canary. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes there's stuff in Dev that's not Canary, stuff in Canary that's not in Dev. Like it's very complicated. But if you know about Edge flags, we kind of give the directions on it. You can enable they're basically making a color picker for the browser, so you can like pick teal, you can pick a darker gray, you can pick white. And it's kind of neat. It's not necessary for me, but they're obviously getting more into the customization stuff. So you can actually enable and do that stuff now. But the bigger news is Microsoft is finally flipping the switch on syncing between. We already have syncing for passwords and account, but specifically we're starting to get syncing for tab and open tab and history syncing and collections between desktop and mobile iOS and Android. So if you're on some of the betas for these, you may already see them, but it's when you go to your open tabs now, you have tabs and you have your in private tabs. And now there's a third category that'll be synced tabs, and it shows up as your various devices. So if you have a Surface Pro X, it'll be there. If you have a desktop, it'll be there. And then you click that, and then it expands like a little tree and gives you the open tabs for that browser, which is wild, right? That's just getting to that dream experience of you can just pick up your device and continue going, right? And also, so there's also the history. My favorite new feature in Edge, and I think it's, again, if you're on the public version, I don't think you have this. It's definitely in the dev version, and you can enable it in flags. I think you can, or who knows? But there's a history button now. So you can put the history into the main bar, and it's so much better. You click it, and it just gives you a list of your history as well as ability to quickly search. So instead of going through menus, it's just there, and it's so much better. And you can like pin it and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, when you bring up in collections, I use collections like crazy now. I have a collection, by the way, just some recommendations for collections. If you never use this feature, I use movies I want to watch. I keep coming across the internet. People talk about movies, and I'm talking like independent movies, one I'm not thinking mainstream, right? That I have a tough time remembering the names of. So I'll create a list, and as I come across them on the web, I just add page. I have recipes. Let's see. Oh, cats. Yeah, because I have an old cat right now, and I know it's mean she can't hear me, but I am thinking about getting more cats at some point. So like I'm researching breeds and places in shelters and all that kind of stuff. And topics I'm working on, whether it's like ARM processors, I come across documents and deep dives. So collections, I'm saving all this stuff. This is what collections are really good for. And things I want to buy, right? Things that if I'm shopping for new boots, I'll get a list of new boots that I'm considering. So having that sync between all your devices is really cool. And hopefully this will go out to mainstream users over the next couple months, but at least it's coming.
Yeah. I love Edge. I think Edge is great. Although I'm not a huge fan of the collections feature. I am super interested in the other new feature they're adding. I like sync open tabs, whatever it is, which is on the mobile version now, coming to the desktop version. Because I don't use the dev channel or like the beta channel versions. I just use the main one because it works fine.
Yeah, but you get the cool new features.
I know, but I'm not. I don't know. If the Edge browser is one of the areas where I kind of just don't care. I just want it to work. Like I like
it because of all the work you're doing with PWAs.
Yeah, that is one. That is a good reason to buy into it because I do use. So let's actually look at what I have pinned as a PWA. I have TweetDeck, I have Airtable, and I have, I think, YouTube Music. Yeah, pinned as PWAs.
You don't use Twitter?
No, I don't use TweetDeck.
Oh,
TweetDeck's
right,
much
because you
better.
use TweetDeck. Right, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. TweetDeck is for
Got it.
power users, Dan.
I've never been able to get into TweetDeck. I don't like
great.
column views and stuff like that. It's just I'm actually really happy with the Twitter app.
Yeah.
I use it on iOS and Android. I don't use really
No,
third
I
parties
use
in
it
it.
on mobile, but on PC because of the bigger screen. I think TweetDeck's amazing.
Yeah, no, I could see that. Yeah, so you tend to, if you go into the flags again, the experiments, you can often, if you just type in PWA, you can see stuff that they're working on, like stuff with the store or launching a PWA automatically when Windows starts, having PWAs be able to run basically independently of that browser being open and doing stuff in the background and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool, but I use Edge Dev on all my machines because it's a little bit more stable in Canary, which is good. And half of this podcast, I realized I didn't turn the RTX voice back on, but I do have it on now. So hopefully you can't hear my cat screaming her lungs out.
She heard what you
She
said.
just woke. Yeah, I know. She's really upset. She's like, "What do you mean? I'm gonna live forever?" Which she is, because she's amazing. Anyway, let's go on to Cyberpunk 2077, a game I have still not yet played, although I should check for pricing. I'm actually kind of like a stock buyer now. I'm like waiting for that price to drop even further before getting it because I'm going to buy it on PC because I have a nice system here. But they've had a rough week, we can call it. So let's just say when reviews came out, especially like Jez Corden's review, he focused definitely on the story and the gameplay and the scale of the game and absolutely loved it. But I believe he played it on PC. And I didn't know this, that the reviews were like you were forbidden to show like console gameplay or something like that when you agreed to the NDA, which is not really all that uncommon, but they did have sort of strict guidelines there. And so Sony had a lot of problems with the PlayStation 4. Where's the PlayStation 3? No, what's out now? PlayStation 5 is
yeah,
anyone?
PS4 version, yeah.
Okay, so the PS4 version. And basically the frame rate was really low, like 20 frames per second. And so people were demanding refunds. So then Sony started like giving refunds, and then it basically expanded to Sony pulling the game completely from the store so no one can buy it because it was kind of that bad. Now we are expecting a patch for this, so it's not like they clearly built it for the high-end systems and they're going to bring it back down, but it's not ready yet. So it's a rough experience. And then as expected, Microsoft followed. Now, Microsoft did a little bit differently. It did refund if you asked for one, but it is still available in the store if you don't care or you want to wait for it to patch. I kind of think that's a better option. Some people complained too on Twitter. It was hilarious because they asked like Sony they asked for on Xbox for their money back. And Xbox went, sure, here you go, refund. And then they pulled the game from the people's systems. And like some people were complaining. They're like, no, I wanted a refund, but I also want to keep the game.
That's not how that works.
Right? Like a lot of people had to explain to them, yeah, that's not how the world works. So that was kind of funny. But it's a shame, right? So, and then, we have, let's see, do I have the article up here? Yeah, so Brendan Lowry wrote a good editorial on our site. Basically says, with Cyberpunk 27's review restrictions, CD Projekt Red, the company behind it, played this system. And this is where the controversy is getting into about, like, as I mentioned, about what reviewers were able to show, plus what reviewers tested. I don't think a lot of reviewers played it on the Xbox One. They played it probably on their new...
I don't even think they released review codes for those consoles. I think it was just the next gen stuff only, or maybe even it was just PC only. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and so that's what it's going to be focused on. It's a shame because there's a difference between a game being bad and a game having like kind of early bugs or these kind of performance issues, right? Mm-hmm. I think the consensus is the open world style and the story and everything about this game is amazing. It's just rough around the edges right now, including on PC with some bugs and glitches and all this kind of stuff. But these are sort of solvable problems. It's not something, it's like what we talked about Duo too, right? It's not something fundamentally wrong with the game that can't be fixed. So this will be, and we've seen this before. No Man's Land, right, is the classic example of a game that really like had a lot of hype, came out, bombed, people hated it, it became like a joke, and then it's actually redeemed itself,
It's
right,
really
through
good now.
updates.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it actually got better, and people are like, all right, all's forgiven. I think we're going to see a similar fate play out for the next Halo game now.
Oh, you think it'll
What do you,
launch bomb and then get better? Well, that's what Halo Master Chief Collection did. Halo, the Master
yes,
Chief Collection launched in
yes,
2014. It launched and it was broken more or less. The multiplayer didn't work. And the campaigns were
yes.
fine, but like it wasn't done. And then they sort of abandoned it for a while, but then they came back in the last couple of years and fixed it. And now Master Chief Collection is, I think, the best Halo ever because it's so good. And they're adding new stuff to it now. They're adding new stuff to a game that's 19 years old. It's incredible. It really is. It's fantastic. So yeah, so I'll be interested with Cyberpunk because for
Oh yeah,
Cyberpunk,
it's
it's
No
not
Man's Sky. Sorry, I
No
said
Man's Sky.
No
Yeah.
Man's Land.
For Cyberpunk, it's not about missing content because the content's all there. The game is there. The problem is the performance and the bugs around it. So I don't think Cyberpunk's going to have that moment of, oh, this is actually a much better there's more stuff here now, because that's not the issue of the game. The game is that it doesn't work on PS4 and Xbox One. So them fixing that isn't anything but them just delivering what should have been delivered anyway. So I don't know if it's going to have the same effect, unfortunately, as No Man's Sky and indeed the Master Chief Collection. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Like, I've played the game. The game is great. I think some reviews overhyped it a bit. I definitely don't think it's the best game in the world. I think if you're looking for a much more detailed and expansive game, well, maybe not detailed, because Cyberpunk. The thing with Cyberpunk is that the world is incredibly detailed, but it's also, but only because it's incredibly dense. Unlike other open world games, where huge world like Red Dead Redemption 2, beautiful game, but a lot of it's just empty landscape. But I think the Red Dead Redemption 2, I was more blown away by Red Dead Redemption 2 than I was this game. But I can see where people are coming from when they say, oh, but the Cyberpunk's all about how dense the world is. And it is indeed the most dense open world I've ever seen. Like, things are layered on top of each other. It is a futuristic city. If you could build a futuristic city in a video game and make it work, Cyberpunk's done it. And most other open world games aren't like that. You get a little city here and the rest of it's open land. Cyberpunk just, although there is open land in Cyberpunk, but the city part it's incredibly dense, and it is a technical feat. Which is probably why it's suffering quite a bit on Xbox One and PS4. The thing CD Projekt Red did is they didn't show the game on previous gen consoles before it went available, and they could have delayed it further, but the game has already been in the works since 2013. I learned recently, which is an incredibly long time for a game. And if they were to delay it further, then investors get upset. So it's all about money at the end of the day, unfortunately. I'm sure the developers, the people actually working on the game, wanted to delay this longer and longer and longer, or at the very least launch on new gen and PC and then come to older gen later. But they can't really do that because, again, investors. But not only that, at least on the Xbox side, Microsoft has a mandate where games have to launch on both. You have to have the Xbox One version and the Xbox Series X version. There is no Series X exclusives, at least not yet.
Right.
Which is also probably why they didn't pull it from the Microsoft Store, because if they were to pull the game from the Microsoft Store, they put it for the Series X as well. And on the Series X, it's more or less fine. I've had a few bugs, but from a performance perspective, I've not had any issues. So yeah, I think they were backed into a corner, and that extra 2 weeks, because they delayed it, didn't they? It was supposed to come out in November. They delayed it another 2 weeks. Everyone was like, "Come on, 2 weeks? What are you adding in 2 weeks?" And
yeah,
apparently
exactly.
not enough. This is the answer.
It's a tough thing when you're the creators of the game. I mean, the people actually working day to day on it,
Yeah.
and then you're the executives who are like, "Come on, we announced
need
this
money.
game
We need
10 years
to
ago.
cash in. We
need to cash
yeah.
in, and we need to get this out. It's the holiday season. We just launched brand new, hardware for consoles. Like, I understand there's a lot of pressure on all sides to deliver, and yeah, you can make the argument that they could have used another 6 months of polish and that kind of stuff. But when you're running a company, that's not necessarily the option, you know. So,
Which is why I think the delay for Halo Infinite was such a big deal, because Microsoft really, really wanted that game out this holiday, because
yeah,
the Series X depended on it. It was it was the game to market for Series X. You can see it in all the marketing materials. It's even on the back of the box. If you buy a Series X box, like a new console, on the actual box, the marketing is Halo, because it was supposed to be out by now. But they've delayed that another year to 2021.
which was smart. I mean, they understand this is important IP for us. This is a
Yeah, I
brand.
mean, Halo. There is no Xbox without Halo. The only reason Xbox is around today is because Halo did so well back in the original console days. Um, and it is their flagship, and really their only, Xbox's mascot. uh, they need to take good care with Halo, and launching a Halo unfinished is not the way to go about it. Which I think, actually, you said you think Halo Infinite will go through this. I don't think it will, only because of the year delay they've added on top of it. Because the game, from a story and content perspective, appears to be done at this point. They're just fixing it and making it
Right.
better. So
The reason I bring that up is only because there's a term used, right? Development hell.
yeah.
When you hear of a movie, it's like,
Yeah.
we announced this movie 2016, and then it's
It's gone
like,
through 3
oh,
directors, 2 producers.
yeah, it's like we're about to shoot. Oh, another director change, and then it's like
Yeah.
now we're shooting 2018, and then it's like it's going back for re-edits and reshoots, and it comes out like 2020, and it's like, wait, this thing's been like 4 years,
Yeah.
and it comes out, and it's like, oh, it's kind of terrible, kind of like the New Mutants, that movie,
Yeah,
like,
and like Solo. Although Solo was pretty good. I liked Solo.
Solo. So yeah, I mean, so Solo definitely went through development hell,
Yeah.
but I agree with you in the sense that I actually kind of like Solo. I actually think it's a pretty good
Yeah.
movie. It's definitely not as bad as people were making it out to be.
Right.
/ way better than the prequel trilogy. So,
That's not hard,
which
though.
yeah, well, if you're in your like 20s, apparently the prequel trilogy is actually not that bad. Which my
I
mind's
guess what you
blown
grow
up.
up on, though, isn't it? What you grow up on, you kind of have fondness for. I think that's what that is.
You know what? We forgot to add to the list, which I'll do now. It's the thing of the week. You keep deleting it.
Oh, did I? Sorry. Thing of the week. I don't have a thing of the week. What do they have to think
Well,
about?
you have, dude. We're still got so much podcast to go through, so you have a few minutes to think about.
Right. Let's move on.
Actually, we don't have that much to go through, so let's talk about some reviews. Working on my HP EliteBook X360 1040. Let me get a drink of water. G7. That
That's a
is
good
a
name.
mouthful. Yes, that laptop review is now live on Windows Central. This is actually one of my favorite business laptops. I was actually a little more critical on this and didn't give it as high scores. I actually kind of believe it because I love giving between an EliteBook, a ThinkPad, and a Latitude from Dell and Lenovo. I prefer EliteBooks. I think their design is spectacular. I love the feel of them, their keyboards. I'm going to go on record. I think HP's keyboards are better than Lenovo's. I know that I'm going to get a lot of hate mail probably on that. I'm not saying the Lenovo keyboard's bad at all, and I appreciate what it does, and I agree. It's a very nice keyboard. But I also hate their track point system, which I just want to rip that out. But HP's keyboard is really different from the others. It's just a very stiff but springy keyboard. It just feels fantastic. So this laptop I really, really like, in the sense that I've used these in the past. I used the G5 and I believe the G6 before for business trips because you can get them with LTE. You can get matte display, which I actually generally prefer over glossy. They have very good trackpads and keyboards and generally good audio. And it's a 360, supports inking. So it does everything I need to on a business trip. Plus it has all the ports, right? HDMI, Type A, Type C, Thunderbolt. So it's an all-in-one device. So I really like the G7. They made it thinner. They made it a little bit lighter. The bezels, HP's bezels have always been hideous. They're getting better now. These are actually pretty thin bezels. The speakers are phenomenal. So it's got 2 top firing speakers and 2 speakers on the bottom. So when you flip it around, no matter what, you're always going to get good audio. Huge trackpad, really good battery life. On some days I hit over 10 hours, close to 11. My lowest day I hit was like 7 hours and 45 minutes, which is still really good. On average, I'm getting around 9.5 hours out of this. So you're getting all day battery life. It does, but I did have some, I guess you can call them complaints, but things I want to make better on this laptop. First of all, it shipped with Intel 10th gen. The 10th gen series isn't that great. Or rather, it's not much of an improvement over 8th gen. The reason they did that, though, is because it has to have vPro. It's a business laptop. You need Intel vPro. vPro doesn't exist yet for 11th gen for that series of processors. It's coming out. In fact, it's about to come out. We have CES coming around, and guess what you're going to be hearing about? 11th gen vPro, right? So they want to get this laptop out. It's been out for a few months already. So they went with 10th gen. 11th gen is going to make such a massive difference on this computer because you're talking around 30% performance improvement for the CPU and around 70 to 80% improvement on the GPU. So that's huge. I'm waiting on the 5G version. I want 5G now in a laptop, and I'm about to review a new laptop that has 5G. 16:9 display. This is going to take years of me pushing HP. And I understand, like I've explained this before, that they can't just switch to 16:10. Sure, they have to completely redesign the device, which is a whole thing, but they also have to source 16:10 displays in all the versions that they need. Full HD with matte, SureView with their whole SureView Reflect technology that masks the screen, 4K, right? And it has to live up to their standards. But they really got to make this 16:10 because this laptop would be so much better 16:10. And I won't name the company, but there's a company that I'm very proud of are going basically all in on 16:10 in 2021. All their major business devices and stuff like that are doing 16:10. And I couldn't be more thrilled. So it's coming. These things are coming. But it's they do dumb little things. The pen has magnets, sticks to the side, but they're weak magnets. So unsatisfying, So go read that review anyway. It's still one of my favorite business laptops. It's one I actually, when I'm not using the Pro X, I enjoy the most being on. So it's really good, but it's for enterprise. The other thing that just went up was the HP Omen 30L. I think this replaces Obelisk. I'm not really sure, actually. I use the Obelisk myself with last year's the Core i9 9th gen. This has got 10th gen. And the one I reviewed has a RTX 3080, which I should just rip it out and just sell it on eBay for like $2,000. So go check out that review. The Obelisk is a really great pre-built desktop gaming rig, but you can get it for like $1,200 or even $900. But what's cool about it, there's a single button on the back of it. You press this button, side panel pops off, and then you can upgrade this PC all on your own. So when you used to buy like these kind of like desktop PCs from HP and Dell and all that, it was sort of like you bought it once and it was configured and that's all you could do. They're building these now so you can work on them. So, you want to swap out the graphics card? Knock yourself out. You can easily do that. It's a really beautiful design. It's not gamer aesthetic. It's very modern. I can imagine this in like a luxury apartment that's all white and modern, and this thing would just look beautiful there. They're kind of hard to find now if you want an RTX graphics card, but the RGB lighting and design, I kind of want to replace my Obelisk with it, even though I don't need to. But go check out that, and go check out my awesome photos. Like, not to brag, but it's a pretty awesome photos, folks. Some other things tomorrow. I'll be coming out with the Bridge review for the Surface Pro X. That's the add-on keyboard, which I explained last week. At first I was like, why? But now it makes sense because it turns the Pro X into basically a Surface laptop, which is pretty rad, and it's a really, really good device actually. So, other things that are coming up. Actually, I don't know if this will show because of the weird backgrounds we have. This is the best 2-in-1 I'm going to say ever made, actually.
It's making you disappear.
Is it? Yeah. I figured with the background it'll do all weird stuff. It is the HP, for those listening to audio, HP Spectre X360 14, brand new, just came out. 3:2 aspect ratio. That's weird. Only Microsoft's been doing that, and Huawei did. 3000. This one is a 3000 by 2000 resolution OLED, which is really cool.
That is nice.
Yeah. It is just an awesome laptop. 11th gen Intel, Thunderbolt 4, comes with a pen in the box. You get also a leather sleeve for it to protect it. Very good battery life. Some of the best audio I've ever heard in a laptop. It has quad speakers, and they just knocked it out of the park. It's got so much power for the audio. So that's the spoiler there. If you're thinking about getting that laptop, if you wanted a Surface laptop, modern and a two-in-one, this is your device. It is just spectacular. It's got Windows Hello, facial, and fingerprint. It's got their new security feature where you hit a button and it kills the camera. It's in the keyboard. The keyboard's phenomenal. Just HP has the best keyboards. I really feel, and it has a giant trackpad too. It's just everything about it is just awesome. Although I do wish it had LTE or 5G. That's the only thing. If it had that, I know I'm in the minority because it makes it complete. It means I could take that. I would use this everywhere, and I probably will use it quite a lot. But that one extra thing. But if you don't care about that, it's just an achievement in design and execution. It's everything you've ever wanted, basically, in an Ultrabook. It's just really good stuff. So look for that review pretty soon. And then finally, I have the ThinkPad X1 Fold to review. And then also, I just got in the Dell Latitude 9510 with 5G. So that's kind of their answer to the LeapBook series. This thing is supposed to get like 20 hours of battery life. It's supposed to be ridiculous. Quad speakers, 5G. Of course, it does pen and inking, all that kind of stuff. So look for these reviews over the next 2 weeks. I'm going to just try to bang through all those. Whew, all right, that was a mouthful. Zach, what are you working on for? You have any crazy stories or stuff?
Nothing I can really talk about. I'm doing an update on the Windows Core OS. So we have a massive Windows Core OS article on the website just for people who want to read about it. I haven't updated it in a while. I'm going to do a big update to that. I was planning to do it this week, but I might have to push it back. It will be soon. Just adding some more information, just updating it with the public information we know, as well as some more internal information. Yeah, it's going to be super interesting. Which I think actually leads us quite nicely. Actually, is that our next story into what we're expecting for next year?
Yes.
It is great. We'll do that now. So obviously this will be the last podcast of 2020. So the next time we talk will be in 2021. So it's time to look ahead to 2021 and to sort of look at what we're expecting, what we're hoping to see, really, more importantly. So I think let's start with what we're expecting. We're obviously expecting a new Surface Pro. We're expecting a new Surface laptop. We're also expecting a new Surface Duo. For hardware, for software, we're expecting some big things next year. Windows 10 is really taking focus in 2021 quite considerably compared to previous years. We're expecting Windows 10X in the spring, which is obviously a brand new version of Windows 10 built on Windows Core OS. That will launch for commercial PCs in the springtime. That's going to be a super interesting launch because I think it will be kind of a low-key downplayed event, only because 10X is launching to that very sort of specific commercial market. You won't see it on flagship consumer PCs, unfortunately, but that's only because the feature set isn't all there yet. There's no local Win32 support. Windows 10X only supports one account. You can't have multi-user sign-on and stuff, plus a lot of other things that just aren't there at launch. But 10X is supposed to be launching in the spring, and that's going to be, at least to Windows Central, and I guess to you listening and watching this, will be quite a big deal. We'll be covering that in extensive detail, don't you worry. In the fall, we're expecting a big update to Windows 10 Desktop, the biggest, I think, so far for Windows 10. Codenamed Sun Valley, of course. This is going to be a refresh of the UI that reinvigorates the Windows user experience. It will touch top-level user interfaces such as the Start menu, Taskbar, Action Center, File Explorer, as well as most of the inbox apps, which will be getting updates with WinUI for the most part, apart from Mail and Calendar. There's a story behind that, which we'll be able to talk about in the new year, hopefully. So the big Windows 10 update in the fall, which is going to be, I think, what most people are focused on. Although 10X is launching in the spring, I think this Sun Valley stuff is really going to take the cake and really be where most people are focusing their attention on, because it will roll out to all 1 billion Windows 10 users, whereas Windows 10X will launch on a very small subset of commercial PCs and will not be rolling out as an update. We should start seeing the Sun Valley stuff show up in insider builds in January, February. So this isn't that far away for those enthusiasts who actually want to know what's going on. Although it's supposed to launch in the fall, obviously they have to start testing that publicly sooner than that. And I am hearing January, February, March time. That is when we will start seeing that in the insider program. So Microsoft may even start disclosing some of this stuff in the new year. So it's going to be super, super exciting for Windows next year. This will be the biggest year for Windows in a long while. Since 2012, I want to say. 2013 maybe, with Windows 8. Obviously, Windows 8 was such a big change. I'm not saying Sun Valley will be that level of UI change, but I am saying it will be a considerable update to Windows 10 that will grab people's attention and be like, oh, this is actually different. Like similar to what macOS did this year with Big Sur, where they sort of refreshed the interface and went, here's a new version of macOS, and everyone went, wow, it's pretty, or not pretty if you don't like it. So yeah, that's going to be super, super interesting. We're also expecting Microsoft to launch its Cloud PC service, which is, as we mentioned at the top of the show, part of your Microsoft 365 subscription, and allows you to stream applications from an Azure server in the cloud directly to your device using similar tech to Windows Virtual Desktop, which, for those who don't know, enterprises have this service called Windows Virtual Desktop where they can install programs in the cloud, and then an end user can sync up to that cloud and actually install those apps on their PC as if they were native, so they show up in the start menu and taskbar and stuff. But when you click on them, it actually connects to a remote desktop in the cloud and will run them, place it on your desktop as if it was native. I believe Cloud PC is that, but for more consumer audiences. And I think at first it'd be mainly productivity apps like Office, full versions of Office and stuff, especially for 10X, because 10X can't run that. But I think it will expand to include more third-party programs over time, and you maybe even eventually be able to just install your own programs to it, which I think is the end goal. That'll be super cool. But this should be part of your Microsoft 365 subscription, and I'll be interested to see how it integrates with Windows 10 and 10X, because I think it can do it in Windows 10, but I don't know if it has it on 10X at launch. I think it goes through an app on 10X, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Cloud PC. So for Windows, the key three things: Cloud PC, Windows 10X, Windows 10 Sun Valley. Those are the big ones. Then, of course, on the hardware side, Pro 8, Laptop 4, possibly Duo 2, and maybe even a Surface Studio 3. I've not heard anything concrete about Studio 3, unfortunately. It does exist, but given the pandemic and the economy and all of those other things, I think Microsoft will probably sit on that for a bit longer, unfortunately. But we'll have to wait and see what they do. I'm not expecting it within the first half of the year anyway. I kind of have a pretty good idea of what's coming in the first half of 2021, and that is the Pro 8 and Laptop 4. But yeah, no Studio I've heard of, unfortunately.
Very interesting. I'll just talk about trends to watch in 2021 for computing, specifically laptops, of course. I already mentioned 16 by 10 displays. You're going to see more of that. See a little bit more of 3 by 2. You'll still see there's some interesting stuff for ARM coming out. I'm very excited. HP already teased a device back in, was it October, I think it was? They teased a new device that's coming out. It looks like some kind of 2-in-1 convertible that runs ARM, because it was announced during the Qualcomm event. And so that still needs to come out. So that's going to be really cool. ThinkPad X1 Fold, of course, I'm going to get that review out soon. That's a really interesting device. But yeah, we're not expecting, Surface Neo, of course. That's going to be a bit of a bummer. And I'm not really too sure if we're going to see any dual display devices really come out 2021, but who knows? If there's a company that's going to do it, it'll be actually probably Lenovo. So that's one thing. Another thing to keep an eye out is we're going to start to finally see some more mechanical trackpads, or I should say electronic trackpads, not mechanical. So currently trackpads and laptops all obviously move, and they can have a little rattle to them or a looseness. And I've argued that this is just a bad legacy design that needs to go on. It's something that Apple innovated on years ago with their virtual touchpads, which work incredibly well by simulating the push through a little vibration motor. And it works really, really well. It's also a better system because you can have even clicking everywhere, and it's more responsive and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to start to see that in Windows PCs this year, which is going to be kind of cool too. Of course, you're going to see more 11th gen processors and AMD, new laptop stuff. And you'll see AMD get pushed into a few more laptops too. They still have a long way to go. Intel is still going to be the big story for laptops in 2021, but you'll see definitely more of that, which is kind of cool. In 5G, 5G and laptops. There's supposed to be more 5G laptops right now, but there's just like the RTX video cards, it's the industry is very constrained right now. So I know, for instance, that EliteBook 1040 should have had probably a 5G version. There was supposed to be a 5G HP Dragonfly too, Elite Dragonfly, that hasn't come out. These things will come out, but as the industry kind of catches up with all that kind of stuff. But it's funny, actually, before this podcast, let's see if it's still, maybe it's not. Okay. My phone actually showed 5G for the first time while I was home. Now it's gone, but it's coming. 5G is coming. It's not the super fast millimeter wave stuff. It's only slightly better, but whatever. It's still important to see. But yeah, it should be anywhere. Just continue to see the laptops get. I'm telling you, man. So since we're rounding up the year, I'm going to write this article probably next week. But if you're curious, my 3 laptops of the year, I've already talked about them extensively. Definitely the Razorbook 13. If you want a straight up Ultrabook, you don't care about 2-in-1 and inking, you just want a really nice, powerful Ultrabook. When I say Ultrabook, I mean it doesn't have a discrete GPU. That's what Ultrabook actually means. So it's Intel 11th Gen Xe. But that is, I was so sad I had to send that thing back. So that's the best one. The best 2-in-1, of course, I just mentioned, is the Spectre X360. And then I would also throw up the Dell XPS 13 in there as well. It's actually a tight race between the XPS 13 is cheaper than the Book 13, and you're basically getting a lot of the same stuff. So if you like the way the Dell XPS 13 looks, that is an awesome device. Of course, if you want ARM, the Pro X is good. I mean, I don't know. The Flex 5G is pretty cool too if you really want 5G right now on Verizon. The Samsung Notebook 9 or Galaxy. What's it? Oh my God. I can't keep up their names anymore. They're really, Book S. I think that's it. That super thin one. That one is really rad. So, but those are my favorite Ultrabooks. I'd also say the XPS 15 and XPS 17. XPS 15 is great. Don't get me wrong. I love the 15. But I feel like if you really want to get something crazy and just go all out, the XPS 17 is just a new world of experience with that giant exo display. So those are my picks.
The XPS 17, is it? So obviously it's got the thin bezel, so it's more like a 15-inch laptop. I hate it when companies say that because it makes no sense mathematically. It's like, no, it is a 17-inch device.
Because they've all kind of shrunk down.
No,
right?
I know,
so,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. But so would you say it's more like a Surface Book 3 15-inch size? Because the Book 3 15-inch is massive.
So go look at my review, and I'm scrolling through it right now. If you type in XPS 17 review, Windows Central, if you scroll down, you'll see it next to the Surface Book 3.
Oh, good. Okay.
Actually, I'll send you the picture.
Thanks.
I have it right here. And I know you're lazy. But
because I'm considering it because I loved I had a Dell XPS before I had a Surface Book. And I loved the XPS. I think like I've said it before, if Surface didn't exist, I'd be using an XPS.
So check Telegram. I just sent you the photo, and you can see it next to the Surface Book 15-inch.
Yeah.
It's a dense laptop. Like it feels like it's full of lead.
Look at that.
But it's like, you're getting more display, way more display on there.
And
bigger
more power, I assume.
You're getting much more power. That's got I believe, a full 45-watt processor. You can get to a Core i9 on it, which is really nice. Yeah. But that is just...
Is it Thunderbolt 4 or 3?
I think it's Thunderbolt 3 because they don't have the 11th gen. Yeah, so it's a 10th gen. Well, the one I reviewed had a Core i9 in it. But that's because the 45-watt 11th gen aren't out yet.
I will wait when
they'll be refreshed in the spring, I imagine. It's probably when it'll happen. And it might be. I haven't used 11th gen 45-watt, but presumably it's going to be a big improvement as much as the 15-watt chips, the U series are. So maybe worth the wait. But yeah, I had to send that back too, and I was really sad.
Yeah.
When you open that thing up, that laptop is not fun to use if you go to Starbucks or you like to fly. because it is just
Yeah.
too big to open up. When you open that up, you're basically the whole room can be like, see what you're working on. So
Well,
just remember that. But
the thing is
that
with
is,
Dell laptops is that you think they're with the XPS line, you think they're going to be more expensive than they are. But I think that might be because I'm so accustomed to Surface pricing, which is always way more expensive than it should be. That when I look at XPS prices, I'm like, this is cheaper than I thought. Like starting at $899, that's incredible. It's like, come on.
yeah, but that's without the GPU.
That's true. That is true. Like the one I would want. Let's see, 15 inch.
But
I'm gonna
still a
spec it
powerful
out.
machine.
Oh,
Oh, you
17
could
inch.
spec it out like crazy. Like I believe you can get up to 64 gigs of RAM on it. Dell's actually pretty good with allowing you to do that. But Dell is, so in terms of pricing, it goes Surface, XPS, and then I would say the Spectre from HP. Oh, and then you have to have Yoga in there too. But Spectre and going with HP is the best way to stretch your dollar because HP tends to have the lowest prices on stuff, and I think their hardware.
Okay, you can spend a pretty penny if you really want. New XPS 17 completely maxed out is in the UK £3,900, but that gets you an Intel Core i9 10885H with Windows 10 Home, which I think is hilarious. 64 gigs of RAM, 2TB M.2 drive, and I guess it comes with the GPU, but it doesn't say. Yeah, that's a lot. That is way more powerful than a Surface Book 3. Which
yeah, that definitely will have the GPU, which is an NVIDIA RTX 2060 Max Q.
Wow.
So
Jesus, I went for the wrong. I might return my book and go for one of these.
Yeah, it's a beast of a laptop right there, and nice keyboard, amazing audio, top powering speakers. They did a really nice job. And what was nice about that laptop was it's exactly what I wanted them to do, which was take the XPS 15, make it a little bit bigger. But I find it more interesting to use than the XPS 15. But it's a heavy laptop. It's what is it? Yeah, 4.65 pounds. Goes up to 5.5 pounds. That's
wow.
It
must have a massive battery in it.
It does. It's a 97 watt hour battery, which is just below the legal threshold that allows you to take it on an airplane. So they really couldn't put it much bigger in there. But it gets pretty good battery life too. I mean, if you're prioritizing battery life, it's not a great laptop. You can't power a display that size at that resolution with that processor GPU for very long. But it does what it can, which is nice. So those are my laptops are there. There's probably a few more. I mean, the ThinkPad X1 Fold is cool. Don't get me wrong, but that's an experimental device. But this has been an exciting year for laptops. Like, I finally feel like we're using the laptop. We're getting the laptops we always envisioned they would be. You know, high resolution displays, long battery life, always connected with LTE, great keyboards. Like they're doing really good on audio. Like HP and Dell are just kind of crushing it on audio, and Razer too. They were smart. They bought THX, right? But this is, I want the Surface stuff. It's okay. Surface Go 2, it's not my jam, but it's a very specific device. If you want a small tablet, computer, it's great. Zach loves it. Surface laptop, yeah, okay. Laptop 4 has got to get 11th gen or AMD stuff in there, and it'll be good.
It needs a better GPU as well than laptop 4.
Well, it is just an Ultrabook, right?
Know,
and that's
why
they
need to make a beefier version.
Right. The 15-inch is a weird device. I said that in the review because it's just an Ultrabook made bigger, which isn't terrible if you know what you're getting, but that's what you're getting. Mm-hmm. It's no different than the LG Gram 17, another awesome 17-inch laptop, but that is literally a 13-inch Ultrabook made big. And it's great, but as long as you're getting it and not thinking it's an XPS 17, which is a way more powerful device. And in between there, you have like the HP Envy 17, which is actually a really nice laptop as well. Way more affordable. So there you go. Those are my, I think that's all my laptop recommendations for the year. Let's get into the thing of the week. I'll go first because Zach is probably still thinking of his.
I had mine, but I've lost it. It was in my head. No, you go first.
So mine's an obvious one. Last night, I finally finished Mandalorian Season 2.
Oh, my God.
I won't spoil it.
It was great.
I won't spoil it. But I'll just say it was amazing. This whole season has been a step up a notch in production value, acting, stories and consistency. And they did such a good job of getting you to care about the characters. But there was also way more, and I don't mean this negatively, fan service than I was expecting. Having Ashoka appear, she's kind of a legendary character, was great. And then, of course, the last couple episodes introduces a few people who are just like, as someone who grew up watching, I saw Empire in the theater as a small child, but it scarred me. Those AT-ATs scared the hell out of me. But like, as someone who grew up with this stuff, like, they kind of gave me the stuff as a kid I always wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like they're trying to make up for some of the
Yeah.
way things went in the new trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the way certain characters were played out. I feel like this kind of made up for it. Like, come on, we're gonna fix a little bit of this, and like, But I was just like so happy with the way like some scenes played out, and very much looking forward to. They announced a bunch of expanded series too, which is really cool.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to the Rogue One, Cassian, him and the robot. They're doing their own show. He was phenomenal. Like, he was one of my favorite characters next to, now I'm forgetting the names. Oh, the main girl from Rogue One. She was also just awesome. But like, I'm very excited about that series. They announced a Rogue Squadron movie, which I said on this podcast, I think before, which was, I just wanted to have like a TIE Fighter series, or not TIE Fighter, X-Wing series, because they're just so cool. And they're going to do a whole movie.
The movie, they did announce a whole bunch of TV shows. I think maybe 1 or 2 movies, and they're definitely not like mainline movies. Obviously, the main Skywalker saga is over now.
Sure.
But like, I was expecting that universe to continue with the likes of Rey, Poe, and Finn in adventures doing other things. But I don't think they're actually going to do that now because of how the actual trilogy went, and how I think most of the actors are done with that series.
And Maisie Diddley, by the way, if you're still single,
stop it.
Just saying. Just saying, she has a nice smile. But yeah, I mean, I think she says she's kind of done with the character, and I feel like that was a lot if you're an actor to go through.
Yeah, especially a new actor, because she hadn't been in anything, basically.
Right. So I kind of feel bad. It's like, I get wrapping this and being like, all right, I don't want to talk about that for a long time. But who knows? Harrison Ford also said he was done with Star Wars.
Yeah, he was done with Star Wars in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, there was that rumor, right? He didn't even want to come back for Jedi.
No, yeah.
He wanted to be sort of... So, like, I totally understand that. That said, I would love to have a Rey series. I mean, I loved her character and her arc. Like, I thought it was a really great thing.
Did you watch the holiday special, the Lego holiday special they did?
The Lego one?
Yeah, they released a holiday special this year, Lego themed. No. It's really good. It's very clearly for kids, but it's really good. It's only 45 minutes, but you should watch it.
The Lego movie I saw like 3 or 4 times in the cinemas.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's really good. It's the synopsis basically is Rey time travels and goes back and sees the past of Star Wars.
Oh.
It's really cool. It is really cool.
I didn't know about that. Yeah, the Lego movies are like awesome. Because they write humor on a level that adults will get.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It I thought it was really great. I tell you what, that Lego holiday special thing they did kind of healed the wounds that I had from The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi on its own, because it's kind of like, it's very self-aware of some of the choices. So the only actual voice actors that came back was Rose and I want to say C-3PO. But everybody else was a voice double, and honestly, I think Finn's is the worst, and the Emperor and stuff. But like Darth Vader and Rey's voice, I thought it was the actual voice actors, because they were incredible. I looked through the credits, like, was that Daisy Ridley? And it wasn't. I was like, oh my god, they found a double of Daisy Ridley's voice, which I guess is great for any future animated series they want to do.
There you go. Yeah, they're also doing the Obi-Wan series,
show, yeah, and they announced Anakin Skywalker is going to be in it, whatever his name is. Yeah, Hayden Christensen, which is cool. I can guarantee you they will fight in that series. There will be a big epic battle between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. I'll tell you how it works, because the fight that they have in Episode 4, there's no indication that when he mentions the last time I saw you, I was the learner, but now I'm the master. I feel like if the last time I saw this guy who cut my arms and legs off, I'd be way more angry than this. Like, they've seen each other since then, and they've gotten over the whole thing. I'm telling you, there'll be a fight. I'm telling you.
Okay. But that's gonna be a cool one. Ewan McGregor. I didn't like the original trilogy that much, but Ewan McGregor was great.
Yeah, he was.
There's no argument there.
Hayden Christensen, but
yeah, I know.
I think maybe he's matured over the last 15 years.
Yeah, not great, but yeah, we'll see. But I'm going to say overall, I think Star Wars has proven it's funny because it works better as a serial,
Yeah,
like a show.
I agree.
And it's not surprising because when you talk, you listen to Lucas talking about the original Star Wars, he based it off of things like Flash Gordon and these little shorts that played before movies. That's where his inspiration from. In fact, he's basically copied Flash Gordon and Akira Kurosawa movies and like merged those kind of two things. So not too surprising, but I really do enjoy this format, and I think it's just a proven winner. So, but if you haven't done Mandalorian season 2, just go through it. Don't stay off of Twitter and social media. You don't want to ruin the surprise. I kind of ruined my
Did you
I was
did you
scrolling
get spoiled?
through it. Yeah, kind of. Like I read something, it's like, what does that mean? I'm like, oh wait, what? Oh no, keep scrolling. And every once in a while I'll see a picture and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But I kind of knew what it was, but it was still good. It was
I came in clean and the payoff was great. It really was.
Yeah. As soon as you see that ship, I won't say the ship, but the ship, you're like, oh my God, this is it. Yeah, it's good. I was like a little child. I am a little child though. Zach knows this. I watch a lot of cartoons.
Yeah, I can't get into cartoons. I really can't.
Yeah, so I watch Teen Titans Go like crazy. I love that. I've seen the movies, which are phenomenal. Also, Apple and Onion is hilarious. I love cartoons. They're great. I love Family Guy, American Dad. I watch all that stuff. What can I say? I'll never grow up. What's your thing of the week, Zach?
My thing of the week is a little known program that Microsoft has called the Microsoft Certified Refurbished Program. This, which you probably can't see, is a Surface Pro 6 that I paid £529 for, and it's basically brand new. And I think that's an incredible deal for a student or somebody who's looking for a device for school or work. But can't shell out for like a full price Surface Pro or a Surface laptop or whatnot. The Microsoft Certified Refurbished program is a hidden gem. I was worried at first. I was looking at this and I was thinking, it's probably going to have scratches on it. Or it's going to be very clearly used. And it's not. It came in a more or less retail box. The only thing they changed is the lid isn't the normal one. It just says refurbished on the front. It's wrapped and stuff. I still have the normal Surface unboxing experience that you get. And I'm telling you, this thing is pristine. Had the box not said it was certified refurbished, I would have thought that they'd accidentally sent me a new one. That's how perfect it was. And if you read their website, they do say, we professionally clean them, we replace any broken parts, and we ship them off again. And they say it's environmentally friendly as well, because these are ones they've already made. We don't have to make any new ones. We're just repurposing one that we made before, and it's now all yours. The battery in it was brand new. It had a battery cycle was 0, which was great. That was the first thing I checked. And I honestly can't. I'm incredibly satisfied and impressed with it. So if you are looking for a new Surface, perhaps consider the refurbished program. Save a few quid or a few bucks, and go for an older gen. Obviously, it is older gen stuff. In the UK store, it's the Surface Laptop 2, Surface Book 2, Pro 6, and I think Pro 5's on there as well. The first generation Go, and actually the Studio 2's on there. And you can get it. Each SKU is about £500 off, which means it's still incredibly expensive. But you are getting essentially
Yeah, you're getting that display, right? That's what you're really paying
which
for.
will be essentially brand new. Like there'll be no scratches on it and stuff, which is 500 quid off is really that's essentially a sale, which is not advertised as a sale. So yeah, definitely. I think it's in the US as well. I think there's a few more devices on the US store, but go and check it out. I think you'll be incredibly satisfied with it. And if you're not, you can always return it because you do get the standard return, and I think you get a year's warranty as well, at least in the UK, which is great.
That is a very good tip and recommendation.
Thank you.
Well, I think that does it for 2020. Thank you all for participating in our live broadcast. Of course, we'll do our Q&A now as usual. If you're listening to this recorded, well, you're going to have to wait till next year to hear our next podcast, which, when do we come back? When is it?
I think it's January 8th.
January 8th we'll be back. So there you go. To everybody, have a happy holidays. Have a happy new year. Please wear a mask. It's getting a little crazy out there, and be careful. And as always, we appreciate you tuning in. You can follow me on Twitter. Again, I'm returned. I'm back on Twitter. Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. As to what happened with my account, we don't know. They just linked up my email again and said, all right, no human actually talked to me. So I have no idea. It'll probably happen again. But for now, you can message me on Twitter. You can follow Zach at ZACBOWEN and follow him on Twitter as well. And as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone. That was 1 hour, 41 minutes, and 00 seconds.
Oh, I got 1 hour, 40 and 59 seconds.
You didn't do it right.
A second early.
Let's do it over.
Yeah. Well, guess what, guys? The book handled itself. It is very hot, but it done it. Oh, man. I just want Microsoft to make an actual desktop PC, like a tower. I'd love that. The problem is with a Surface desktop tower is that there's no surface to it. It's like, there's no touch. How is it a Surface?
Yeah.
But I still want them to do it, and I think they should.
Surface everything. Surface car.
Surface car. I'd buy it, even though I can't drive.
All right, if you guys have questions, start firing them off.
Yep, question time.
Because I got reviews to write.
Yeah, and I've got a bed to sleep in because it's late here.
Yeah.
Any idea when Microsoft will start adding new features to Surface Duo? I assume it will arrive with the Android 11 update, which I'm hearing will be sometime in the spring. On Windows Weekly this past Wednesday, Chris Capicella was mentioning about Xbox Series X game console supply shortages. Wow, I can't even say that. What were you guys surprised? What at the shortages? Why can't I say that word? No, we wasn't. I wasn't anyway. I think his explanation.
I think it's been predicted for a long time.
Yeah,
it's because of the RAM components and memory components are in tight supply because they're used in cars, phones, computers, and consoles.
Cozy Plains, a leak on Twitter says Microsoft is set to release a Surface Duo in black soon. How true is this? I will tell you that I did try to dig into this and I have not been able to confirm it. No source has said that they've seen a Surface Duo in black, nor is it on the cards for the launch in February, at least as of right now. Surface webcam with Windows Hello when? ? Good question. This is something I've said Microsoft should make for many years, and they haven't, so probably never. Any chance they ever make a Surface monitor? So the rumor was that a Surface monitor was in the works alongside a Studio 3, and they would probably launch together. But because of the pandemic and the economy and the delays and whatnot, that hasn't happened. Also, I was talking to Dan about this earlier. There's probably other factors at play for why a Surface monitor doesn't exist. A lot of high end expensive monitors these days come with things like Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4 now, because they can act as like their own docks and displays. Like the monitor I've ordered, the replacement for the LG, I've got a BenQ PD3220U, I think it is. But it has like its own USB ports on it and whatnot, and you can actually use it as with those USB ports through the single Thunderbolt 3 dock. That sort of stuff, I think, is necessary for a monitor of that high-end caliber these days. But the problem is, if Microsoft makes a Surface monitor with Thunderbolt 4 or 3 technology, it really doesn't align with the rest of their product portfolio, which doesn't have Thunderbolt support. And not only that, like if they were to say, oh yeah, you can hook up to a Surface dock and you can use it on your Surface Book 3 or Surface whatever, the dock can only output 4K 60 Hertz at most. The Surface Studios display is, I think it's a bit more than 4K. I think it's closer to 5K than it is 4K. And not only that, again, of a display that high end, you need it to be, more than 60 Hertz, I think. So yeah, they've sort of backed themselves into a corner, where the monitor they want to make wouldn't be compatible with the Surfaces they make. It would be for like high-end desktops and other laptops and whatnot, but I think there's a lot of other things they've got to solve. And it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they get around that.
Someone's asked me about the Surface earbuds. I'm only wearing one in the right ear. Are there any technical issues? So, first part, no, but kind of. I would normally wear the gray ones, but my right one actually did break. um, and I don't know how or why.
What, the
I would
actual
said,
on the grey buds?
yeah, it doesn't work anymore. It
Ah,
connects, but no audio comes through. Um, and so I don't know why. And because these were review units, they don't have a warranty.
yeah.
So I try to punch in the serial number. Nothing, it's not in the system. So I don't know what I'm going to have to figure out something. But Microsoft, if you're listening, I swear I didn't
You've
like.
got another pair.
So I'm using the white ones. The only reason I'm using one, I just find it more natural. I don't like having two things in when I'm doing a talking back and forth. I think it's just because I'm used to using a phone, which is like this, but I just find it more natural. Or even when I was do TV once in a while, they just give you that one earpiece. So that's it. Why doesn't Microsoft go AMD on their hardware? They are using AMD, but AMD didn't get, I'm going to be very clear on this. AMD didn't get good until the Ryzen 4000 series for laptops. And that was only this year, okay? They went with Ryzen 3000 and it was terrible. So AMD is worth watching. And their stuff in laptops are more powerful. But I've mentioned this before, it's not all about raw power. First of all, if you're using an 11th gen Intel Ultrabook, I would doubt you're ever going to be like, this thing is slow and sluggish. I wish I had AMD. There's no world. If you're using that Ultrabook for what it's meant for, 11th gen is really fast and it has really good graphics on it. I'd also mention it's not, like I said, it's not just raw power. It's all the other stuff. How fast does it turn on? How fast does it resume? Do you get Thunderbolt 4 support, or is that going to make a rarity item? What about LTE options? What about for business support? A lot of Surface is for business and enterprise. So there's a lot going on there. I've also mentioned how Intel co-develops a lot of hardware with companies. That is, they pick up part of the tab for R&D. AMD doesn't quite do that. There's also the support that Intel gives, which is better and longer than what AMD can match. AMD is going to be worth watching, but I need you all to stop thinking that AMD just like, if you just drop that chip into that laptop, it's immediately like a different device that's on a whole other level and a whole different experience. Service has a lot of other smaller issues that they need to fix. Thunderbolt is one. I love to see anti-reflective displays. I wouldn't mind seeing HDR displays. Their audio can continue to be better. There's just a lot of other stuff that's going on with those devices that can actually improve too. I'd like to see more LTE in those devices. So it's not all about, it's about the memory you support, the hard drives you support. Do you support PCIe? And like, so there's a lot going on with these. And don't forget, a lot of times companies like Intel do undercut AMD. I know you see the sticker price and you think AMD is cheaper, but a lot of times Intel will mass sell products to companies at a lower price that is just harder for them. Dell, for instance, gets a deal with Intel. And what do you see on TV? You see Intel commercials advertising their new 10th and 11th gen chips. What do they feature? A Dell XPS 13. Do you think that was free? Do you think like Intel just like picked one? No, they have a deal with Dell. So why wouldn't Dell use that? They're like, oh, we're getting free advertising on national TV and prime time. So there's a lot more going on to processors than just like, that one's faster, just use it. That's like, you can have that discussion a little bit more on desktop, but it's a lot more complicated when it comes to laptops. Whew. So, hey, you asked the question. That's the answer.
I've got a 4K 32-inch Samsung smart monitor that's connected to a Surface Book 2. It's only connected at 30 hertz. It's okay to get by, but with like a higher refresh rate. Yeah, 30 hertz is rough. Can the Surface Book 2 not output 60 hertz of 4K? Surely.
No,
it must be able to. You must. Are you not connected to a Surface Dock? A Surface Dock 1, I don't know if it can.
I don't know if that should matter. It gets complicated because it also literally depends on the cable you use.
Yeah.
I've had HDMI cables and Thunderbolt 3 cables, and they get different experiences. I've had issues where I used to have 3 monitors. I'm plugging with an HDMI or a DisplayPort. Actually, DisplayPort usually has a lot less issues. But with an HDMI, the monitor would flicker and have all these issues. All I did was swap out the cable for literally another HDMI one, and it worked.
Yeah.
You see these problems a lot. So your cable can be an issue in the output itself, but Surface Book 3 does 4K at 60.
That said, I'm pretty sure the dock 1 can't do 4K 60. I think 4K 30 is its max.
That could be an issue, yeah, if you're connected to a dock, that's causing issues.
Dock 2 does do 4K 60 though, so if you do have a 4K monitor, I think investing in a dock 2 is well worth it, because the jump from 30 to 60 is much bigger than the jump from 60 to 90 or 120.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, did we talk about the chances of Duo having slight revisions?
No, we didn't. I don't think so.
Do you really think they're not? I'm really curious about that Type-C port.
Yeah.
Like, that seems kind of like on not a complete fix, but you figured that you might be able to do something to reinforce that a little bit.
Well, the only thing I can think of is surround it in metal. But that's a
Or even
considerable
put on
change
the
in the
inside.
design.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think we will. I'll say that. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think we'll see any design changes or fixes for the issues on this hardware. I think this will be what it is.
It's just got like a metal thing bolted on. It's hideous.
Yeah.
It overlaps.
There's a little sign that says "Do not touch."
It cuts your finger if you grab it too quickly. Do you know of any way of lowering Cortana's voice? What's Cortana? No, when she delivers notifications like the low battery alert on Surface headphones without it cutting off the audio currently playing? I don't.
You can't do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Info and 10x Insider builds. I unfortunately don't think they're going to do a preview program for 10x. I think 10x will just launch and that's it. And because of it's launching in such a small subset of a market, I don't think it needs it, and I think Microsoft agrees, which is why it won't happen. I think there will be insider once the 10x devices start coming out. I'm sure there'll be an insider program for 10x, but I don't think you'll be able to put 10x on a device you currently own. Although Microsoft does self-host 10x on some Surface devices internally, it's not all of them. And it's not like full support, like they do it for development purposes, but in a lot of cases for devices like the Pro X and the Go, there's a lot of platform issues that they are aware of that they won't fix because these aren't devices that will ever ship with 10X. All right, a couple more questions, and I think it's time to say goodbye for the year.
I think everybody else is going on vacation. I'm just like jamming as many reviews as I can in here at the last minute.
I'm not on vacation until Thursday, I don't think. And then I'm off. Although I think I'm working one day. I think I'm working on the 29th.
Yeah, I'm working on Monday.
Yeah.
Would really love to see a partnership and be able to get T-shirts, cups, and other stuff with both Windows Central and Windows Ninja Cat brand together. Yeah, we used to do that. That's a little. The people that run that stuff in our company, I don't see eye to eye. I agree. I would love to actually see that. We'll try to press the topic again. Let me put it this way. It's dumb we don't have our own merch and sell stuff. I can't understand the reasoning behind it. We'll try to get something going there for next year, because if you were cool, you still have a Seems Faster unicorn t-shirt, which was used to enjoy seeing you guys at Build wearing them. That was pretty fun.
Why does Microsoft not make a Surface Pro 15-inch when they have a Surface Book 15-inch clipboard? Did it exist in the experimental stage at any point? I don't think so. I think they don't do it because the Surface Pro form factor is so different from the Book. The Book is a laptop that can be a tablet. The Pro is a tablet that can be a laptop, and that's considerably different. Because of how top-heavy the Surface Pro is, a 15-inch version is probably... It doesn't make sense. It's not very feasible. It's probably uncomfortable on your lap. And also, no one's using a 15-inch tablet. They call the clipboard on the Book a clipboard and not a tablet because Microsoft knows you're not using a 15-inch tablet. You're going to use it as a clipboard. You take it off sometimes. You're doing checkmarks on a and, to do or whatever. You're showing somebody something, and then you dock it back on. You're not using it to watch videos or movies and stuff. Not really. So yeah, no, I think like a 15-inch tablet just doesn't make sense, and that's what the Surface Pro 15-inch would be, is a big tablet. What are the plans for Windows 10 going forward? Did you hear any whispers about what's coming after Sun Valley? I have not. I don't think Microsoft is looking that far right now. I think what's coming after Sun Valley is all the stuff that they couldn't get into Sun Valley in time. So yeah, I think we're going to see. We'll have the big Sun Valley release, and then in 2022 and beyond, we'll see more things trickle into Windows 10 as time goes on. But once that redesign's in, like that's the new Windows, right? And they can build from there. But 10x, I think once Sun Valley's out, I think the focus will shift back to 10x, and that's when we'll start seeing a more consumer push, much more features, app support, etc., etc. Do you think Microsoft will try and make their own version of YouTube, Twitter, or TikTok? I don't. Microsoft will try and buy one of them, which they did with TikTok and fail. But they won't create their own social network. They've got LinkedIn, but that's not. I don't consider that a real social network. Not in the sense of like Twitter and whatnot. What is next for the Surface product line that you expect to see Microsoft to make? Surface Book Pro, single screen phone, etc. I think the next new Surface will be a Surface Laptop Pro. That's what I think it would be, or a redesigned Surface Book that no longer detaches and is much more powerful with a better CPU in it and stuff. I think that's where they're going next with the Surface. Yeah. What do you think, Dan?
Sorry, what? So, I'm house shopping. I don't need a house.
What do you think is next for the Surface product line in regards to like a new product or a new form factor, not a revision to an existing line?
Yeah, the sky is the limit,
said
right?
Surface Laptop, like Surface Laptop Pro, I think would be the
next
one.
That's my guess. I feel like that's the obvious one. It's also sort of the easiest.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You're kind of just taking the frame of the laptop and, speccing it up, right? So they already know how to make a good laptop. So to me, that seems like the most obvious one. It would make the most sense for a 15-inch type device, or maybe go crazy, right? Make it a little different than a laptop. Make it 16-inch. I mean, Apple just did that, right? Make it a 16-inch with a 3:2 aspect ratio. Put a bigger GPU in there. That's a cool thing. That's a little bit different. So that to me seems the most obvious. I think we're still too early for like AR glasses, right? I don't think we're going to get that anytime soon. That's probably 2022, 2023.
Yeah.
Maybe the Surface display, who knows? Then I'd love to see them do a wearable, but there's no sign that they're going to be doing a wearable. So, but yeah, so laptop Pro.
How serious are you about picking up one of those Mac Minis? I'll be interested in your thoughts. I'm not super serious. I mean, the book did do the show. It's just I can't touch it whilst it's doing it. I can't do anything else on the device while it's doing the show. But I do have a Surface Pro to my right here, which is what I'm using to look at comments and articles and stuff. So it's not the end of the world, and I'd rather not spend 700 quid on a new Mac.
And have to relearn all the software.
Yeah. Ugh. Why can't the Surface Book just be good? Will you ever see a Surface Mini PC similar to a Mac Mini? I would love that. Outside of a laptop Pro, I'd love to see a mini Surface PC desktop. That'd be so great.
But the only reason I don't think we'll see that, it's one of those, it wouldn't cost them a lot to do, but it's also not an area where you can really innovate in.
Yeah. No,
because I feel like these things are basically a small box and you pack it with hardware depending on the price you want to sell it at, right?
Yeah.
You want to make a $700 one,
right?
Huh?
Every Surface needs like a thing. That's
Surface. Like what does it do
different?
That'd be different than an Intel NUC or what Lenovo sells, for businesses and enterprise. Like how would it be different? Maybe, I mean, there are ways that it can be different. We just haven't thought of them, obviously. But I think it's a little bit tougher, because it's a pretty bare bones system. They're just a processor, some RAM, and storage. It's like, all right, what's the trick?
Mm-hmm. It has magnetic components that you can like build on top of it, and it adds like GPU.
Yeah, like I said, there are definitely like cool ways they can make it cooler and
Yeah.
neater and more creative in design. There's no doubt about that. And imagine it would look like, well, we know what it would look like. It would look like the Surface Studio without the display.
Yeah, I mean it exists. Yeah, it's great. It looks nice.
So, but we'll see. Yeah, the modular Surface Studio. Yeah, that was going back to the patents is a cool idea. And we've seen them sort of adopt some of that for Surface Hub 2 it's a lot more modular in terms of being able to rip out the CPU with which is really easy, or have the battery pack. That'd be kind of cool. I wouldn't be surprised if they're working on something like that, because that'd make the Surface Studio a way more interesting device.
Oh yeah.
Maybe also another reason why they would want to do their own processor at some point, because then they can kind of keep upgrading those with their own processors.
Yeah. One question I had: how deep into the system will Sun Valley changes be implemented? So this is an interesting question, because the answer is I don't fully know. I can only tell you what I've sort of been told / some of the documents I've seen, and a lot of the sort of main goal for Sun Valley is to make Windows more consistent, which means updating not only top level interfaces but legacy interfaces as well, which includes things like the old copy dialogues, those sort of control panel applets, and File Explorer as a whole. Really, File Explorer is supposed to be getting an updated UI with Sun Valley. I don't think this will go so deep as to they're going in and removing all the old icons and whatnot that you can still find in Windows. But what I think it will do is it will make most of the areas in which you frequently visit or see updated, modernized, so you will come across a legacy UI element much less frequently. I think that's how deep it will go.
Someone's asking if I hear a slight hiss in my earbuds.
Yes.
From people's voices on phone calls. I think it's just a general hiss you hear in general with the earbuds, due to, I believe, it's the Bluetooth LE and the way it works. Yeah, doesn't bother me, but I could definitely see if someone doesn't like it. I don't think it's something wrong with your headphones, if that's what you're.
Someone's asking. Someone's saying Surface Studio can be used as a video input, so that it can be used as a second screen. I don't think that's true. I think it's video out only. Yeah.
Video out only. It's been in both reviews.
Choice they made.
Yeah, it's both the reviews. It's one of the things that comes up all the time. It's like, yeah, because it would make it's a weird to use as a secondary display because it's so expensive. But
if you've got one and you need a bit more powerful computer, it would be nice to be able to do. Hello, I'm right here.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's something like HP has done, like they're all in one. The AIO 32, the NV32, which is an awesome all-in-one, by the way. That like it can be used as a secondary display. Like, so I don't think it would have costed like them much to have made that feature. I don't know why they didn't.
For sure, they definitely did it because the Surface Studios. The display is actually, for those who don't know, the actual Surface Studio display is technically two displays, and they're fused together, which is why the actual, when Microsoft talks about it, that there's all these special cables and stuff that run down the hinges and whatnot. And actually, I think you can actually even go in and break the driver and tell Windows, or rather reveal to Windows the actual nature of the display, and it shows up as two different monitors in settings and stuff.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I assume there's no plug and play for that, at least not yet.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, they also put it's sort of like the pen drivers. There's 4 sensors.
Yeah, because they couldn't. It's supposedly really hard to make a 28-inch touchscreen with pen support at that high resolution.
Yeah, so we're talking about the exact kind of pen support that's in like the Surface Pro, where it's consistent between drawing between different quadrants. Yeah, it was a big engineering challenge, which is why you don't see a ton of Surface Studio clones right now.
It's also why it's so expensive, right? You pay for that display, and not just because it's a high quality display, because of all the R&D and tech that went into actually making it possible. And I assume they've reused a lot of that work on the Surface Hubs, because they're obviously massive touchscreens as well. Someone's asking, does Zach not do reviews, and is that why you get all the cool computers, Dan? I don't do hardware reviews, not really. I don't really enjoy hardware reviews. I much prefer reviewing Windows 10 when I get the chance to do that. And I'll do like impressions and follow-up reviews after Dan's done the main one. But I like to, because I like to have a device and use it, whereas reviewers have to use different devices all the time, and that would drive me
It's
insane.
true.
So I like to sort of buy a device and stick with it for as long as I possibly can. And if I'm reviewing laptops, you can't really do that. So
It's also PR works different ways. So I deal with US PR for HP, Lenovo, Dell, and whatever kind of Microsoft. But if like HP wants to send me a laptop, it's HP US. I can't be like, cool, but can you send it to Zach in the UK? Like they could do that for exceptions, but they actually would have it an HP UK team, and we need to set that up. And it's so it's
Nightmare.
but we all have our kind of specialties. I obviously enjoy doing hardware and laptop reviews. It's kind of my gig. Desktops are a little bit less interesting, but they're easier to do. I found out because you don't have to talk about the display or like keyboards or speakers.
Yeah.
Like it's just like I'm going to describe this box, and on the inside of the box is some components.
Here's how warm
and
that box gets.
Yeah, and either I think it looks cool or it looks stupid, and then here are some benchmarks and some random numbers. So yeah, laptops are definitely, and there's a lot more innovation going on laptops. Obviously, I think mobile computing is just, I love it as a field. Someone's asking about what microphone I'm using. This is an Audio Technica AT2020. Would I buy it today? I don't know. This is a couple years old at this point. I think on Android Central they just reviewed a new microphone that got really good review. There's probably better stuff out there than this. I'm also using a Chaotica I, which is what this big black ball is that takes out the echo. I also have some sound paneling in here too, so hopefully it sounds good.
How is Codename Polaris going? Found this channel when you guys were discussing it. Oh, I've got some bad news for you. Polaris is dead. Polaris is not a product that Microsoft intends to ship. Polaris was Windows Core OS for traditional laptops and tablets. It looked like Windows 10, but based on a modern core, basically. That isn't a thing anymore. Windows 10X basically replaces it. So if you want to know what Polaris is up to, just search the web for Windows 10X, and that's basically what that is now. So there you are.
All right, 2 questions here. Do you think that Microsoft's ultimate goal is to compete with Macs?
Not really, no.
I said this time and time and again. They want to push computing in new directions, revolving around the idea of empowering people, right? They create devices to let people do things that they couldn't do before. So there was no device like a Surface Pro, right? A tablet PC with a foldable keyboard that can flip around and change postures, angle the screen where you never could before, but also support inking, which we've seen has grown into its whole something, not just for drawing, but for taking notes, for setting people directions or diagrams, right? So it's a very useful tool for, again, creation, if you heard my TikTok discussion. That's their kind of goal. So Surface Book is a laptop, a pretty powerful one, not the most powerful laptop, that was Zach knows, but that allows a display to pop off and be a tablet. So you can switch it around and use it as a giant 15-inch, artisanal table basically for drawing or inking, or you can just hand off the tablet to someone else and they can manipulate. Surface laptop, less of that, right? It's just a really good laptop, but doesn't, that is a little bit more of a Mac competitor. But then you look at Surface Duo. Does Surface Duo compete against the iPhone? No, because it's a really different category. And I've talked about how it's more like a PDA, where it's very good for people who need to organize data, manipulate data, and always be on a schedule, and where information is they need to be triaged, right? It's a really good device for that. So they don't compete with Macs. On some level, they kind of do, right? Obviously, they've done commercials. Like if you're looking at a Mac and you're looking at a Surface laptop, that makes sense. But the overall Surface concept, I think, is to push computing into new areas where something doesn't exist. There was no Surface Studio. If you wanted that device for inking as an engineer, it didn't exist, and they made it, right? So that's what I would say is the goal of Surface. Second one is a real quick one. I love this one. Zach probably won't appreciate it though. Someone's asking about my watch because they're a watch guy. This is the best watch. I haven't bought a new watch in a long time, because this is my favorite watch I've ever owned. This is the Zen 104 RS. It's a red seconds. They don't normally have a red seconds. This is such nerd minutia, but that red seconds hand is unique. They've only made 200 of these in the world, and I have one. But it's just an awesome,
How
gorgeous
much did
watch,
you
and I
pay
love.
for it?
It was not crazy,
Okay.
but it was a couple. It was.
You don't have to say. I apologize.
It's three to four Apple Watches.
Is that how we count now?
I'm just kidding, making it relative. It's just it's not like a Rolex like pricing or anything like that. But I actually think I think Sinn, spelled Sinn, a German company. I think they make the best watches. This is my second Sinn, and I highly recommend them if you want a real watch.
All right, I think
Can they empower people? Sorry, can they empower people with a good movie and music editor? I mean, I wrote that article a long time ago, so yeah, it'd be really nice for them to come out with a. Who knows? Under Panos, it could happen, right?
Anything
Zach, what do you think
could
about
happen
them?
with Panos. Sorry,
Like
what was the
Movie
question?
Maker. Basically,
movie...
they did a Movie Maker app.
Yeah, I've not heard anything, unfortunately. Yeah, I think that ship sort of sailed, unfortunately. But we'll have to see. Obviously, like Sun Valley could introduce new apps, and that could be one of them. I think, honestly, because I think they've sort of been burned with Paint 3D. I think Paint 3D was their sort of venture into this modern utility-based application suite that they wanted to make, and Paint 3D flopped hard.
It really did.
So I don't know if they're too keen on going back down that path. But I would love to see a movie maker. A modern version.
Don't you think Paint 3D would have been cooler if we had a Lumia phone that had the 3D scanning camera?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, I feel like that was the missing component to like. I mean, it was neat what they were doing with it, but if I was able to take my phone's camera, scan an object, and then it would go in there into 3D, like to me that was like, I don't know what I would use that for, but that would be way cooler.
I think the mistake they made is that they called it Paint 3D and not just Paint.
That's true too.
Like, because Paint 3D is actually really good, and it is an improvement over the old Paint. The problem is that its UI is so different that it does take a bit of relearning. But once you do it, it's great. Like Paint 3D is a better version of the old Paint, but nobody will give it a chance. Like that's I think the problem. So yeah, Paint 3D it was kind of treated poorly by the public, I think.
I was not a fan. Another quick question here. This about the Surface Laptop 3. I currently experience on average 4 to 6 hours at most before I need to plug in. It should be getting a little bit more than that, but I'm not really sure on your settings and your power slider or your brightness. Some people run their brightness at 100% and their power slider on maximum power. Yeah, I'm going to get in a couple hours. It's weird. So I don't know. Those things. One of the biggest variables in laptop battery life, which I try to control for my battery test, is screen brightness. Most people try to get around 150 nits, and that's, not extreme. It's low, but that's good because the display draws so much power. So if you always run your display very bright, you're going to get less power. Something that's very true on OLED, especially if you use non-dark mode stuff. So you want to check if the battery is bad or if this is normal. So you can check the battery health. You should be able to. I believe if you look up Windows battery report, we have a how-to on it, but you run this battery report using command prompt, and it generates a report, goes into your C main drive, and you click it, and it opens as an HTML, and you can see your charging history, the battery health, the battery size, the peak charging it gets when it maxes out, what it should be. And you also will see your average run times, basically your average battery life before plugging it in again. This is one metric I use in my laptop reviews, not the only one, but this will actually give you a real value between sessions that you've been using the laptop and then an overall average since you've installed and all that kind of stuff. So like I said, look up Windows battery report, run it yourself. It takes like literally 15 seconds. And you'll have a lot more information about your device.
Microsoft should really turn that into like a consumer facing UI in the settings app or something.
The battery report.
Yeah.
It's a little complicated. It's a lot of information that gets generated. But yeah, it's one of those little tricks
That's
of
what I'm saying.
Windows.
Like they should turn it into like a consumer friendly UI.
Yeah.
Because all the
Yeah, I
data's
mean, on the
there.
iPhone, you can dig into your battery and see its battery health, right? God, people go crazy on that on Twitter. Why is my battery says 96%? And they want to throw out their phone, right? So yeah.
I'm generating one right now. I'm going to see what my battery life is like on my
And battery
Surface.
degradation's a thing, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it
they
does,
do
yeah.
degrade. So like a lot of business laptops will have, this is what makes a business laptop business. Besides all the security software, they have things in there like power management, like, oh, I leave this plugged in all the time, or most of the time. So the battery will only charge to like 80% because that's better than charging to 100% and leaving it charged at 100% all the time. It's a weird thing with these batteries, but Dell and HP compete on battery health and basically how long the batteries are supposed to last. So yeah.
I have 12 cycles on my battery 1 and 10 cycles on battery 2 because obviously the book has 2 batteries.
Nice. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see the last chart shows you your average battery life per session and then average for OS install.
Yeah, look at that. Is that in seconds?
No, so I've had it where it's arrowed out. I have one laptop right now that shows like 1,556,000 hours or something.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing.
Yeah, maybe it's a bug in Windows.
Yeah. Wow, my device lasts forever.
Yeah, you've really done great things.
Yeah. All right, I think it's definitely time to wrap up.
Yeah, I gotta get back to writing.
Yes. Thank you a lot for tuning in. We will be back in the new year, January 8th, with another episode. Not that there'll be much on, because let's be honest, I don't think anything's going to happen between now and then. But it is 2020/early 2021, so maybe something amazing will happen. Who knows? But until then, we will see you in the new year. Happy holidays, happy new year, and all that good stuff.
Bye, everyone.